So anyway, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good, man. I've been dealing with some ice storms here in Oklahoma for this past week, man.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, man. Like power going off and on, and school being canceled, and yeah, all that.
I had no idea. That's rough. How you holding
Yeah.
up?
Man, I'm holding up pretty good though, man. I'm holding up pretty good. I feel like I kind of got knocked behind on my grading schedule, losing power and Wi-Fi, and kind of got knocked back on my little posting schedule. But I make up for it eventually, one way or another.
That's good. So what do you do for work? Are you a teacher?
Yeah, I teach ninth
that's
and 10th
cool.
grade English at a alternative school,
Mhm.
and I also teach at the college level. I'm a debate coach as well as a human diversity and social work professor.
Oh, very cool. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
It's very cool. Okay, so this is what I do for a living. I fucking sit here and I play video games and I have conversations. So
You living the dream, Papa
I
Good.
know, I know.
You living the dream,
But
man.
for how long, That's to be determined. So the other day I had invited you on for a couple topics, whichever one you wanted to choose, but you chose both, so we can go through both. The first topic was if you can be racist towards white people, and then the second topic was like how can we solve systemic racism? And I guess we'll start with the first one. So I'm assuming you take the position that you cannot be racist towards white people.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So if you want,
I would like to give disclaimers, if that's possible, to that position, because Papa Good, how people on the internet do in terms of interpretation. I think that malice, any type of negativity towards white people for being white, you know what I'm saying, is bad. But I think that when we had this conversation, I'm going to be talking specifically about racial resentment. And you know what I'm saying, how historical trauma works. But I just want to say that prejudice against white people is bad.
Okay.
Before we engage in this conversation, I saying clearly,
I figured you did.
Prejudice against white people is bad. Be nice to white people.
Right. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think we agree on most of this. I think it really comes down to that, whether you can or cannot be racist towards white people. So I'm going to assume that we both agree that systemic racism exists. I think we're both going to agree that white people can't be the target of systemic racism. And that in this case, we're specifically talking about the label of whether you can or can't be racist towards white people. And I want to say for pretext that, like, technically both frames of thought can work in a society. And I come from the perspective that I believe that exempting white people from being able to be the target of individual racism is a net loss for society. And so I guess the way I would start here, it would ask you, what are the benefits of saying you can't be racist? We'll just stick to black and white people. This way we don't get so all complicated. But what are the benefits of saying that you can't be racist towards a white person?
I think that when it comes to talking about the solution of how do we solve systemic racism, I think that we have to have a real nice described problem for us to be able to, I feel like, give a prescription to the problem. So I think that one of the ways in which talking about how the power of racism impacts people on the individual level, on the systemic level, I think that the, I guess, advantage comes out in terms of how we structure the criteria of racism and kind of it being a white over black paradigm. Shout out to all of my non-black, non-white people. I recognize that these conversations sometimes displace your identities, but I want to recognize that the entire Western world is structured by this white black binary, this white black paradigm.
If you want, we could extend it to BIPOC people if you want. I just if you want. I don't think it's necessarily relevant. Not that.
I think that the white black binary operates in all cultures.
Right. Yeah, I would say that in America, like, that's probably the biggest dichotomy, right? Generally, I would say in America, like, black people sit at the bottom of the totem pole and white people sit at the top, right? So it's easier to stick to that. Yeah. So you brought up that. So your perspective is that we would need to say that you can't be racist towards white people on an individual level in order to solve systemic racism. Is that what you were saying? Or to identify it?
In order for us to try to solve a problem, we have to understand how this problem is identified and how it's acknowledged. And I think that from just a etymologist standpoint, that racism always already inscribes the white-black binary, specifically the white over black paradigm. I think even on the individual level, and the reason why I made the global analysis is because of my kids in the background. Hold on 1 minute.
No problem.
My kids in the background.
No
But the
problem. Well,
reason why
it's a
I
Sunday.
brought
It's a
up
Sunday afternoon, right?
the
So it's a
it's Sunday afternoon, man.
what are you gonna
But
do?
the reason why I brought up the paradigm, the black-white paradigm, in terms of how racism operates, I'm going to be making a global analysis, you know what I'm saying, pretty much throughout this, in terms of thinking about how even in continents or countries where it's predominantly Asian or predominantly, you know what I'm saying, African, how we still see how white privilege on an individual level is still able to codify how white people navigate the world, even on the individual level.
So you're saying that, like, basically in the entire world, and that's true, that white people have power. So therefore, on an individual level, it makes sense to say that white people can't be the target of any type of racism.
Yeah.
Do you think that, because that's an interesting argument I haven't heard before. Do you think that white and black people are just fundamentally equal? Like, regardless of all power dynamics and lack of education and systemic racism, do you think that white and black people that grow up in the exact same way are the exact same?
No.
Really? You don't think that? You don't think that white and black people are equal? Really? What do you think?
I mean, I think that I would like to believe, and I want us to be equal, but I think that from a psychological standpoint, like I get into my psychoanalysis bag.
Sure.
I think that even if you have a white person and a black person that's the same gender, that grows up in the same household, that goes to the same school, that listens to the same music, I think that the way that we're positioned is going to make it where we're going to
right. So you're talking about what you're talking about with the factor of systemic racism existing, they wouldn't grow up the same. Without that factor existing, let's say everybody was equal. Everybody's
in a hypothetical utopian world.
Right. Which is, I think, we're both trying to gauge towards. So by that logic, I would say that if black people were in the position of power, we would be seeing the same exact thing. Racism towards white people if black people were in the majority and white people were in the minority, and basically if black people had just gotten lucky enough to have access to resources that allowed them to basically take over the world and colonize the world in the past, because that's why white people basically own the world, because we just got lucky. We have the access to resources, and then we ended up colonizing.
I would call it domination and colonialism. And
right. Well, yeah.
But
that's my point. But like black people I would say that black people probably would have done the same. Like, Asian cultures tried to do the same thing as well. Like everyone has a history in colonization and slavery. That's every culture has a history. You don't agree with that? You don't think that every culture has a history of colonization and slavery?
I think that making that type of framing is a way that we can gloss over the uniqueness in which how Europeans have been able to literally use colonialism and slavery in a way that history has never seen.
I would say the only
think about 3 different types of slavery.
Sure, go ahead.
Chattel slavery, debt slavery, prisoners of war. You recognize that chattel slavery is one of those unique historical.
You say
forms
shadow
of
slavery?
From anything.
What is that?
Shadow slavery.
Yeah, what is shadow slavery? I'm curious.
Chattel slavery is when you are able to completely dehumanize the slave, where they're seen as chattel, as cattle. You know what I'm saying? And it makes it, and the uniqueness of chattel slavery is makes it where in debt slavery as well as prisoner of war slavery, if you and I, you know what I'm saying, have kids in chattel slavery, our kids are also, you know what I'm saying, held to the plantation.
Because I'm just looking up a formal definition of shadow slavery and I don't see it. I'm gonna assume it's like a
CHAT.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I know I'm country.
Oh, chattel slavery. Oh, okay.
Chattel slavery. You feel me? Like cattle.
Okay.
Chattel.
Right.
Animals. You feel me?
Because I would say
in terms of slavery.
Sure, I would say the only difference between slavery from I guess you'd say Western cultures and white cultures is that it's specifically. Or is this referring to the dehumanization of people? Like, because when white people created the concept of race, and which would led to white supremacy.
Remember that right there.
Is that what you're talking about? Is that what chattel slavery effectively is? Is like the creation of
a bit, but chattel slavery has three different unique things that makes it different. You know what I'm saying? It's prenatal alienation, how black people are alienated from the world, or alienated from land and seen as being landless people. Prenatal alienation. The second one is complete dishonor, where literally you're, you know what I'm saying, as your skin is seen as a badge of dishonor. And the third thing is social death,
Okay,
You feel
so
me? Well, your body
what
is seen as being socially dead, and
right.
that's those are three unique tenets that separates chattel slavery from those other forms of slavery. And I would say that white people were able to, in history,
Mhm.
uniquely use that to literally take over the
But
world.
I don't know because I'm looking at chattel slavery, and it's basically where like you own a slave, and then their children are slaves forever, basically like the whole bloodline. I don't think that that's unique to white people. I mean, they did that in. I know specifically that's something they're doing in North Korea right now. Um, like they basically have people in like internment camps where they just work for free labor and they abuse them until they die, and then they bring kids in, and then you know. Although I
The
guess they
three
can't have
tenants,
kids.
Papa Good. The three tenants,
Mhm.
the three tenants that I just brought to
So
you. I can
okay.
repeat them again.
No.
That's what you need to chattel
So
slavery.
basically, what you're saying is you think that white people are especially evil. If you don't think that black,
No, I
well,
would say that
only because I proposed the
I
idea
wouldn't
that
say that.
I proposed the idea of like pure equality in the context of if any other group of people were in a position of power, they would just basically be doing the same thing. And I was going after
See, I think that that's how we. I think that's how we kind of rationalize with white supremacy. We can
mhm,
acknowledge that Europeans, in terms of world history,
mhm,
have not been at the top of civilization always. We
mhm.
can point out when see. I think both of us are familiar with Mansa Musa.
No,
Mansa
probably
Musa,
not.
the richest man in the world. Not familiar with him? Well, I
Mhm,
think that if you was to learn about people like Mansa Musa, learn about, what I'm saying, the Dogon tribe, learn about, what I'm saying, the Aztecs and the Mayans, you can
mhm,
see how when a civilization that's not European
mhm,
literally represents the top of the world, you feel
mhm,
me? They don't kind of do this top-down domination. For instance, we
mhm.
know that the West Africans had engagement with a lot of the people in the Americas.
Right.
They
Well,
didn't dominate, they didn't colonize each other. They didn't enslave each other.
just reading into this, it looks like they conquered a bunch of cities as well. So they basically colonized as well. They just didn't take it to
No,
the
I
next.
think
They just didn't take it to that next level.
but that next level in terms of language, I think language is very important, Papa.
I
Like us
mean,
being able to
maybe
make
I think
distinction.
sure, but I think that at the end of the day, just the ability to actually conquer, right? If anything, I'd say that the argument here would be that I guess white people just conquered better. We just happened to
That's I think
be
that
better at it, I
y'all
guess.
conquered better because y'all were able to buy into dehumanization in a way that the world had never seen before.
Maybe might be
So I
possible.
guess to go back to your question when you asked me, are you saying that white people are uniquely evil? Yes, I'm saying that from
Oh, you think
historical
so?
academic
All right,
standpoint.
that's fair.
Yeah, you just said it. You just said it.
Well,
I think you said one
I
good
think
thing.
I would come from the perspective that white people were able to create as many technologies as we were because we are like we're like bloodthirsty, generally speaking, right? And like all technologies come from that. Okay, well we pivoted off the point actually because you got me very interested in the chattel slavery and whatnot.
Yeah,
That's a fair
challenge slavery.
that's a
Listen,
fair
Afro
point.
pessimism, bro. Afro pessimism is where I'm about to
Yeah,
be coming
yeah.
to. Today, I'm coming
All
from the
right.
literature base of Afro pessimism
Yeah.
to be
So
able to explain how white people do not experience racism on an
no,
individual level.
yeah, yeah. So okay, so let's get back onto the point. Let's get back onto the
Yeah,
point because that was actually very interesting with the chattel slavery and Manson Moose. I'm going to look into that stuff. So I'm always trying to look into that. Okay, so back to the point where we were talking about. We basically just started and we went off on a tangent. Okay,
yeah.
so
My
we were
bad.
talking. No, it's not your fault. I was curious about a lot of things that you're saying. Back to the point that we were talking about. So, where the fuck? How far did we get? Oh, right. I was trying to make the argument that
We
like
got
if
to.
that if it was anyone else, the same thing would happen. The reason I was making that argument here was because when it comes to the frame of thought that white people can't be victims of individual, well, yeah, it can't be the victims of individual racism. I think that has like a net loss for society, and I want to explain why. So, first and foremost, I always do like this is a very basic thing. Well, actually, really, first and foremost, I don't think do we know how many hate crimes there are that are that are perpetuated against white people in the United States?
I
I don't
don't.
know. I would assume it's zero to like very few. Maybe there's some, right? We would assume that there's substantially less hate crimes towards white people than black people. So just on a practical level, as a society, we're already acknowledging that for the most part, what like black people aren't going to be even racist towards white people. We're not seeing a pattern of like this issue. So the reclassification of the word really has no practical reason to that, no practical meaning other than honestly, I think it would just rally white supremacists that would say, hey, look, I told you they're trying to be anti-white now because that's what they're going to rally around. It's like, oh, you can't be racist. When you say that you can't be
It's
racist,
non-unique though.
What do you mean? Well,
I think that's non-unique because white supremacists have always created the narrative that something is being anti-white.
right, but that doesn't. But that doesn't
comparing
mean
them.
that doesn't mean that that's not going to galvanize people. Like you're going to have normal white people who I think most white people want equality. They just don't understand what that means, and they don't understand like the background of black people for sure. But when you make this narrative, it's like, listen, you can't be racist towards white people. Effectively, what you're doing is you're demonizing white people while also holding them to a higher standard at the exact same time. Because now you're saying that any hate crime that you would commit against me is less impactful than any hate crime that I commit against you. And at the same time, you're also generalizing, because I can understand that black people, that like individualized racism has some kind of an overlay with systemic racism, where you may have a mentality of hatred towards white people based on the circumstances that you grew up in, but you're going to take that out on an individual white person, where that white person, while they may be, you could say, contributing to, we could say, what would you say? Systemic racism, or unintentionally, they're not actually trying to. And so now we're talking about individualized hate towards an individual based on these circumstances that are justifiable. But as a society, we can come to the agreement that it could still, both instances can be racist, whether it's white to black or black to white. It's just that within context, the one that's black to white is more justifiable. And that's the perspective that I come from.
I think that when we're able to acknowledge that white people created racism, we can acknowledge, you know what I'm saying,
white people created race.
How there was,
like white people created just race in general, like the concept of it. Yeah,
I agree with that. I've done the etymology of.
I think it's like
race,
France,
and
like
I think that it was
France
always intended to be white over black. You feel me?
Maybe,
it's
sure,
intended that.
It's possible.
I think that even with the individual level, when you say that, you can see that there could be a justification for it. I think that racism is, I think racism is defined in opposition to justification or rationale. Like racism to me is defined by irrational. You know what I mean? So for me, being able to, I feel like if you're able to acknowledge that white people created racism,
which I do,
acknowledge that black people doing something to white people on an individual level could be justifiable, I think that automatically takes away. But let me ask a few questions to make some
sure.
Right. I think that in historical context, I think you and I would both agree that the Holocaust was a result of racism, right?
Sure. I guess racism. I mean, would you like bigotry against, what would you call bigotry against religions?
I look at it as some.
It's like some
old school Semitism, and I think.
Right. Yeah, because I don't know if Jewish people are. It's so weird with Jewish people, because it's like a race and a religion at the same time, kind of. Is it
both at the same time? But
bizarre.
But we know they're a type of. But I know from a phenotype standpoint, the Nazis were able to literally attack big noses, big lips.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you see how race was tied into it. I think that it would be unethical to say that the individual that experiencing Holocaust violence is being racist towards a German. You feel me? Like
I understand what you're saying. So when you're paralleling,
so in terms of resentment, like I think that racial resentment, historical trauma has to be acknowledged, and the only way you can say that an individual white person can experience racism on an individual level is we have to erase the historical trauma and erase. You know what I'm saying?
I understand the pretext, but to make it very simple, because I understand what you're doing. You're paralleling like Nazis to like white people in America.
I think that white people in America got the Nazis beat. I want to say that again.
Well, okay, but the difference, I'd say. Well, actually, I don't even know if I'd say the difference, but is that like we're actively trying to shift that narrative, although they already did in Nazi Germany. Where I think that we are. I'd say that overall we are trying to shift the narrative of actual white supremacy in the United States. Like I'd say for sure, there's no way. I think that there's no way you could deny that.
I think that doesn't resolve the historical trauma.
No, it does. No, it doesn't. But my point is that we're going. Here's what I would ask. So what's the end game when it comes to race?
The end game when it comes to race, if you're asking for in terms of how race was set up, was to make sure the hierarchy of white over black is always sustained and make sure that indigenous people and black people are accumulated and exterminated. That's what I think is the end goal of race.
Well, no, I mean, that's not what I mean like that. I mean, like, what's the end game of the, okay, so I would say the end game is to just completely abolish race. Like that's the end game. Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
I think that I would go like two steps of like above that and say it's to abolish the hierarchies of racism.
Sure.
I think that it's not that. I think that a lot of us be lost in the sauce of sameness,
Mhm.
and we focus on how we are same
Mhm.
rather than trying to, I feel like, embrace our infinite differences. So I think
Sure.
that the idea of me seeing that you white and I'm black, that ain't the issue. The issue is that when we start to create values
Based on those,
yeah,
based on like skin color and like noses and all this other bullshit. Yeah, no, I understand what you're talking about. Just basic physical bullshit features. But
then it's when you put the value on those features.
Right. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about removing the value from those features and just having like individual, like similar, like sameness in, equality, or rather opportunity.
Right.
Yeah. So we're basically, to keep it simple, we're just trying to abolish race. Like that's the end game, right? Okay. So what I would say is that we have the word racism, and we both agree that there's much more justifiable methods for you to be racist if you're black when it comes to black towards white. But at what point do we eliminate the word racism? Because I would say that, like, once white people are no longer in power, which we're actively fighting to do, I would say, even if it's not as fast or done as well as we could, we're going to hit a point where white people no longer have the power in America, which is inevitable, I honestly believe. I mean, white people, I think, are supposed to be like 50% of the less than 50% of the population by like 2045. At what point do we decide to, like, remove the word racism in a society? Because what I would say is that, like, you're not setting everything up for equality when you exempt white people from being able to be the targets of racism. And it's going to mean that down in the future, we're going to not only generate a mentality that, like, crimes from like white to black are not as serious, like, in a long term, and then it's going to turn into the demonization of white people.
Power, though. Like, do you think that men can experience sexism?
No, but we're not. Yeah, men can experience sexism, sure.
Like, how does that look?
How does sexism work? You don't, like, just things along the lines. I mean, we have these higher suicide rates. You don't think that women can be sexist towards men? That's a very interesting question.
I think that men can internalize hyper patriarchy, or men can internalize sexism in a ways where they start to reify gender roles. But I don't think that men can experience. I don't think that women can be sexist towards men.
You don't think that a woman can be sexist towards a man? You don't think that a woman can look at a man like an objectifying stance as just like some kind of like a pocketbook? Or anything in that concept?
I don't think that necessitates the definition of sexism. I think that people can be prejudiced towards each other. I think that people can be
right. So, but why remove the label of prejudice?
Already entails power, bro. That's my argument in the big picture. The isms always already entails power.
But it's not contextualizing the fact that we're trying to actively shift that power dynamic. And I think that's the problem.
I think that everybody that I'm quoting right now, like for instance, Stokely Carmichael said that if the white man wants to lynch me, that's his problem. If the white man has the power to lynch me, that's my problem.
Right. So what happens? So what happens when the power dynamic shifts inevitably? And we still set that we
ask me about.
What happens?
Finish, my bad.
Yeah. No, what happens when we shift the power dynamic, which is going to happen? That's what we want to happen, and we still have these societal ideas that you can't be racist towards white people, because now we're literally setting society up for basically oppressing the oppressor, the past oppressor. That's what's happening. That's honestly what
I think. The new economy. I feel like right now your psychological desires is speaking through, and you recognize the reality that it is to be at the bottom of the.
Okay, well, no. I don't want to get all complicated in this like whole argument of like, because what it sounds like you're saying is what it sounds like you're saying is like, hey, yeah, that's what's going to happen. Like, is that what the goal is?
I think that from a historical standpoint, I can point out in terms of human history where non-European civilizations had the willpower to be able to dominate and colonize other ways in which the Europeans have done, and they did not do that.
So your argument is it's just not going to happen. Like, it's just not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. I think to go a step further to answer your question, when you ask me how can we get past the idea of racism not being able to be towards white people if we see that things are shifting and changing, I think that you got to be better on being able to have an understanding of whiteness. Right. Dr. George Yancey is a philosopher of whiteness, right? He talks about how the white identity is always fluid. You know what I'm saying? So think about it like this. You're Italians and Irish at a point in time, they weren't seen as being white. Once the Western world starts seeing that more Irish and more European, more Irish and more Italians start to immigrate to America, they got incorporated into the white identity. We see the same thing happening right now to what it means to be Hispanic. So when it comes to this idea,
I think that
the white identity is always fluid.
So is what you're saying that we're going to get to a point where race is just going to die off and like there's not going to be no loss?
I'm not saying that at all.
So that's what because we're kind of pivoting off the top. What I was specifically talking about was that if we exempt white people from being able to be the target of racism in a potential level, right? Then once equality is hit, we now have societal standards that say white people are lesser than black people because they can't be targeted by the same violence. And that's just going to turn into from white supremacy to, I guess, BIPOC supremacy. And then your response is going to be, now you know how it feels. But that doesn't create equality. And so now based on this idea...
I think this is a great hypothetical.
No, I know, but I think it's a reasonable hypothetical situation because it's all contingent on the idea of setting societal standards that are anti-white. What?
I think that white people always. I think that you and I are very intelligent people, and I think that if we can look at all of human history and we can point out where white people, in terms of this white-black binary, was at the bottom and black was at the top, it's never happened.
No, I know, but we're trying. But that's what we're trying to create equality.
And I think that,
just because it's never happened doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
Think about the logic of this. You saying us trying to create equality could lead to us creating black.
That's not what I'm saying at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. Yo, you're misinterpreting. No. That's not what I'm saying. No. That's not what I'm saying. Don't say that's what I'm saying because I'm not. I specifically removing white people from being able to be the target of racism is not equality. It's not an equal standard. What I'm saying is by creating this standard that white people could never be the target of racism on an individual level. Once the power dynamic shifts, that's the goal, to get everybody to be equal. Now, once we're equal, we now have a standard that says white people are not equal socially because they're exempt from being able to be the targets of racism, which diminishes the impact of racism from a black person to a white person, which means that we're going to create a society that's not equal. Simply put, saying that white people can be the target of racism, but it's highly unlikely, which is my perspective, and also contextualizing like systemic racism in the motivation to be racist on an individual level, that's going to propagate a society of equality. But we're not. But it's unequal to say that white people can never be the victim of racism on an individualized level, and it also sets the standard that we're not equal on an individual level at all. Because you're saying like we should look at white people differently as black people on an individual level.
On the individual level, we are not equal though.
We should be.
Throw hypothetical. Listen, it's how I say this. I find this the simplest way I can put my argument. Assholes come in all shapes, colors, and sizes. Assholes come in all shapes, colors, sizes, political affiliations, genders, sexual orientations, all of that. The issue is that when you have a system or an institution that can back you up and being an asshole,
sure,
pop a gut. If me as an individual want to say, you know what, I want to punch you in the face because you got a long beard, and I hate people with long beards, there's nothing that would stop me from doing that. But there is a system in place that would persecute me to the highest extent of the law if I decide to do as such. You know what I'm saying?
So let's keep.
So when it comes to the individual level, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Assholes.
Right, but we're agreeing on the now. What we're talking about is the future when everybody is perceived as equal. Once the power dynamic shifts, once we shift that power dynamic, once we apply that equity and that equal opportunity to people, we've also now set the standard that white people can't be the target of racism. It's going to lead to inequality.
I can end this with 2 lines, fam. In your hypothetical, if you're saying that the demographics have shifted and we're equal, that means that racism is gone. So how does one reinscribe?
Right, but that's the point. But the point is that would racism be gone when we set societal standards that demonize white people?
I think that when you acknowledge that white people created the word racism, we have to ask ourselves: when white people created the word racism, did they intend for themselves to be victims of it? Hell no, they did not.
No, but okay. So it seems like your entire argument comes down to the fact that black people were never as violent as white people, right? And so once, that's what you had.
My entire argument boils down to a systemic institutional operation,
right?
Like literally,
right.
Carmichael quote. What about it? If you want to boil my argument down to something simple, Stokely Carmichael said, is the white man wants the power, but wants to lynch me, that's his problem. If the white man has the power to lynch me, that's my problem.
Right, but then we're talking about removing that power. That's where we're coming at. We're talking about a point where everybody, like, power is equal. There's going to be fewer and fewer white people, right?
Power is equal. I don't know how white people get to be victims of racism. So that literally solves
because you're setting a standard that white people literally cannot be the victims of racism. You're basically
racism is gone. Listen, if racism racism is gone, this standard is also gone.
No, right, but when we're talking about a societal shift. No. I know what you're doing. Listen. If we right now set the standard that everyone can be the victims of racism, but we have to contextualize power, that's going to lead us to a point where a race will be effectively eliminated. If we set the standard that white people specifically are the only ones who cannot be the targets of racism, what we're doing is we're going to set up a standard over the course of like moving forward in history that white people have to hold themselves to a higher standard, and they're also less than every other race, really. And it's simply over the one labeling of if you can be racist. With contextualization that it's almost impossible right now.
People can experience classism, people can experience ableism, people can experience sexism, people can experience all the
right, but you're not. I don't think you're. What?
Why does it mean so much to make it where white people have to fit under the paradigm of being victimized by racism? Like.
First, for just pure equality moving forward in the future. Right now, it means absolutely nothing if you say that you can't be racist towards me because I have all the power. But 100 years from now, once everything shifts, when you have a societal mindset that white people are effectively cannot be the target towards a certain thing, once the power shifts, that mindset maintains.
Does this involve the systems and the institutions that like garner us and that govern us? Does this also affect the change? Because I think that
everything's going to change.
It's like lazy revolutionary. You know what I'm saying? Like to me, it's like anti-revolutionary in a bit because it's like, fam, this idea of the hypothetical is almost like asking a slave. So what are you going to do when you're free? How do I know when you're not free, you're not going to be re-enslaved me? It's literally comes from.
That is a drastic watering down of what I'm saying. There's a difference between free. Because
you're literally asking. You're literally saying, hypothetically speaking, if slaves right now are literally unequal and they're on the plantation, and we both agree that slaves should be off the plantation, you're literally saying, how do we stop slaves from re-enslaving the slave master and shifting the paradigm?
No, you're watering down the argument. No, that's very disingenuous because that slavery situation is literally, first of all, connected to systemic racism. We're not talking about, hey, if I release, hold on, we're not. No, it's not. We're talking about releasing. We're not talking about just releasing slaves. We're literally talking about proposing pure equal opportunity and equality for all people and trying to eliminate race. You can't do that while actively trying to set us up for a societal standard and idea that white people are inferior. Because when you say white people can't be white
people are superior in this society.
Yes, they are, but do you think we're ever going to get to a point where they're not going to be?
Unless I see the world burning down the way it is, which I don't see no time soon.
So so then basically your argument is that
global capitalism in the corporations and the people that's invested into it. So let me get this straight. You think that the richest white people that control the world right now that literally invested into this black over white paradigm is going to make it where one day, 50 years or in 500 years, they're going to just make it where the descendants of them is going to give up all the wealth, all of the privilege, all the power they get from that?
So effectively where we're coming from is like we're effectively coming from two different frames of thought. So my frame of thought is I do genuinely believe that we can shift that power dynamic over the course of 100, maybe 100 years ago. You don't think that.
My question is how? How do we shift that?
So I mean, like basically, I would imagine that you would take money that was called wealth redistribution, and then you would slowly invite opportunity for other people to try to succeed. If your idea is that white people will never not be in power, that comes from just a fundamental difference in like the way that the world would potentially work. I'm an idealist, so maybe I'm impractical.
I'm not engaging in defeatism. When we have to talk about strategies and methods to be able to deal with systemic racism, we have to understand how systemic racism operates and functions. And I think that if we misdiagnose the problem of systemic racism, we can misprescribe misprescribe the solution for how we deal with it. You feel me? It's like if we're trying to, revamp a house and we're trying to remodel a house, Papa Gut, we have to understand exactly what we're going in and remodel.
Right, which we totally, but we do. We agree with most of it.
To me, what you're saying, though. What you're saying, if I had this big house and I'm recognizing the right wing of the house is fucked up. What you're saying is that, George, if we only see the right house of the right side of the house being fucked up, if the left side of the house gets fucked up, we'll never be able to potentially see it, being able to fix it.
That's not at all what I'm saying. We're specifically talking about what we need to understand is that we have almost the exact idea of the world other than when it comes to this specific labeling of individualized racism. We both acknowledge systemic racism exists. We both acknowledge that we need to remove power from white people. We both acknowledge that we need to create a society that's supposed to be equal. I'm not saying, oh, we can't fix the left side of the house because the right side might fall apart. All I'm simply saying is, let's fix the left side of the house while keeping an eye on the right side, that it doesn't fall apart. That's totally different. I'm talking about investing resources to a greater degree into, really, I guess, BIPOC areas. We're not talking about not making everything equal. I'm not afraid. The reality is, I'm not afraid as a white person to be equal to a black person. That there always is going to be some kind of subconscious fear of the idea of setting up ideas that white people will be seen as inferior rather than equal. And that's where I'm coming from. And down the line, beyond my lifetime, because it's not going to happen in my lifetime, obviously, there hopefully will be a society that is has pure equality. And once you set this societal standard where white people are basically able to be the targets of racism, or not be able to be the targets of racism, you're basically demonizing white people to a point where there will potentially be a time where white people will be seen as inferior, and then they will just be the ones that doesn't create an equal society by creating these double standards.
I think that if your hypothetical is true, that we've come to a pure time of equality, I think that your fear is literally it's not capable of happening. Why? There's literally no potential to happen because we're pure. If there's ability for us to be recognized that racism doesn't exist and we're pure and we're equal, I don't know how we can describe it. If we're truly pure,
I'll explain what I mean.
It's what I mean by libido economy, though. It's the political economy and the libido economy. Your libido economy is your emotions, your fear, your desires. I think that when it comes to the libido economy, the fear, the emotion, the desires, there's something that permeates how we act outside of the material world. And I throw the language away, right? The political economy is how we get money and how most people think about racism. People got money from doing racism, so it exists, right? Sure. There's no economic explanation that one could have to be able to describe why the slave master wanted to cut the legs off of the slave. You feel me?
Right, but what is that? But not to be rude, but what, like, you're going off on a tangent. We're specifically talking about generating a society of pure equality, right? And what you're saying in this circumstance is that once everything's equal, the label of race goes away. But it's not contextual. That's what you said. No. That's what I said under my idea, where you treat everybody equally on an individual level while also contextualizing systemic racism. But your perspective is to set a standard where it's like, hey, white people can't be the target of racism in any circumstance.
I didn't set that standard, man. I didn't set that
yes,
standard.
You just
and I both acknowledge that white people created the word.
No, but you're saying white. Okay, what you're saying there could never be an instance where a white person could ever experience individualized racism. That's your argument.
No, it's called prejudice. The word
no. Stop pivoting off the art. Listen, I'm trying to lay this out very simply. My perspective is that on an individual level, everybody should be treated the same while contextualizing things like systemic racism. Basically meaning that it is very difficult for a black person to even be individually racist towards a white person. You're saying abolish the term racism when it comes to being applied to white people. So over the course of however many hundreds of years it's going to take for everybody to be purely equal, under my idea, equality will be propagated because we're treating everybody on an individual level equal within context. In your idea, where you can't be racist towards a white person, being racist is worse than just being prejudiced. So you're saying it's worse if a white person causes harms to a black person on an individual level than the reverse. That's fine now, but as we move forward as the power shift goes, maintaining a standard where you maintain that standard where basically you can never do anything as worse to a white person as a black person. Once we shift in power, you're now trying to propagate hatred towards white people. That's my whole entire point.
But in your hypothetical, and I'm saying, if on point 3 you can acknowledge that we are pure, we're racism is gone. How do we get to point 5 and being able to
you're I don't understand how you're not getting the idea, the social idea, the idea of beating somebody that, like, just having a different social standard for two different people. That's what you're trying to set up, a different social standard.
This is saying on the individualized level, violence to people on on an individual level is bad, bro. I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
acknowledge
but you're saying it's worse. You're saying it's worse if it's white to black, right? But
You said what?
you're saying it's worse if it's white to black, right?
You and I both are saying the same thing.
Yes, now. But what happens however many hundreds of years once race is dead?
I am. Listen.
That's where we are.
I'm gonna answer hypothetical different this time.
Mhm.
Me and my black business and my black mind and my black intellect
Mhm.
is not interested in answering your hypothetical bad faith questions.
That's not a bad. It's not a bad faith question. It's not a bad faith question. It's
a bad.
You're saying it's a bad. You're
not, racism is gone. You still saying that
you're not. You're just not getting it.
What you're saying is something so unique about black people that we still will be able to inscribe hurt.
No, you're personalizing it too much. You're completely ignoring what I'm saying. I'll explain it to you. No. I'll explain it to you one more time.
Goes away if we peer.
No, you're intentionally misunderstanding what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. I'll re-explain it. Okay. All right. So obviously the goal is to remove racism, right? Even remove the concept of race in the long term. In order to do that, we need to set societal standards that propagate equality, right? If you say everyone can be the target of racism, but the power dynamic needs to be contextualized, you're going to continuously propagate equality over a long period of time. So once those hundreds of years pass, or however long it takes, everybody will be equal. Under the idea that white people cannot be racist, you're saying that white people cannot ever experience the same level of harm. So your entire argument hinges on the idea that we'll hit a point where, simply put, people will just stop giving a shit about race and move forward when you're setting a standard of inequality in the long term. That's what I'm talking about.
Listen, fam. I'm make another simple response. Why would we use standards from a racist world? Why would we put standards from a racist world in a non-racist world? Why would we use
because you can't get to a non-racist world while proposing unequal ideas. You can't get to a non-racist world, and that's what exempting white people from being able to be the targets of racism is. It's inequality.
So, in your hypothetical, you're worried that the standards of this racist world will gloss over, will spill over into the non-racist world. The racist standards.
What I'm saying is that the racist standards of the world will not disappear when you set up standards of inequality. You're basically proposing an idea of inequality, and you're not seeing it.
So let me hear me clear. So what you're saying is that consciously is engaging in inequality because he doesn't think that white people can experience racism on an individual level.
Yeah, basically. What saying, yeah. And I don't think you're contextualizing history. I don't think you're contextualizing moving forward.
I think that this bad faith is literally
it's not a bad faith argument. You're trying to subtextually label me as a racist.
What I mean to you by bad faith. I'm explaining to me what I mean by bad faith. I think that right now we're using misnomers. When I say bad faith, I mean one thing. When you say bad faith, you mean another thing, right?
Okay.
Listen, in debate world, I can acknowledge that there is extinction currently happening now, right? And what you're telling me is, consciously, I hear you saying extinction happening now, but what if in 2 weeks everybody dies of extinction? It's like, fam, if extinction matters, we should focus on it right now. Your hypothetical goes away if we're able to fix it right now.
I think you're just being. I think that you're not.
World spill over into a non-racist world.
Because your idea doesn't create a non-racist world.
A racist world.
Simply put, your idea just doesn't create a non-racist world. That's the whole point I'm trying to make. Is by setting up a double standard, and it's not going to create a non-racist world.
So does reverse racism exist?
No, it's just racism. It's just racism under context.
Hold on. So when white people created the word race and racism, did they envision the word racism impacted with white people being the victims?
No, they wouldn't.
You're
so heavily harping on the past as this idea that it's like an absolute. We're talking about societal constructs. In your mind, it seems like you think I don't understand that, like, there's almost no way right now to really be racist at an individual level. We're talking about maintaining the standard moving forward as power dynamics shift.
I'm giving you a simple.
Yeah, it's
a solution, bro.
But it's not a solution.
world. It is a solution,
No,
literally.
it's not.
It's like literally. Think about it like this, man. I'm gonna go back to my house metaphor. If I have a shitty home and I have shitty standards in this shitty home, if I get a better home, I'm not gonna take the same shitty standards into the different home. I'm gonna create new standards for a new home, new standards for a new world.
So why wouldn't we create those new standards? Yeah, right. But like, why aren't we creating those new standards then?
Because because literally the reality that we situate in does not fit to those standards.
But you just said that we need to change the standards, so you can't. Our house moving is going to be slow. In your idea, the shitty house is where we are now, right? And the good house is where we want to get to. You need to apply the same ideas to propagate equality.
Hold on, Zane. Hold on. I'm about to use my metaphor right now, man. So in my shitty home,
yes,
my water only works in two houses. I mean, in two of the rooms, and I only use it 1 hour out the day. It doesn't make any sense for me to create a new standard of me being able to use the water at any time at my new home. Those new standards, I would love to be able to run the water at any time, but Papa Gut.
Yeah.
But in my home right now, there's no need. As a matter of fact, it would be net bad. It would be a disadvantage to my survival. Literally, my ability to breathe and use water would go away if I use these hypothetical new standards for me maybe getting home to be able to deal with my problem right now. The problem right now for Papa Gut is that white people are not experiencing racism, and you want me.
But that's the thing. No. Right there, you're saying white people aren't experiencing racism. So why would it hurt to maintain the standard?
No, you and I both were saying that white people are not experiencing racism.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. Yes.
And what you're saying is that, but we think about if white people could experience racism.
Yes.
Come on now.
But why is that a non-factor to you? Why is that a non-factor to you? Honestly, why is it? No, hold on. Because here's the thing. No. Let me just propose a very simple thing here, right? Because I'm talking about future, maintaining like equality while contextualizing, right? We already acknowledge you can't be systemically racist towards white people. We've already acknowledged that. There's no so it's
it works like the yes, it's level is where we see the visual impacts of systemic racism.
Yes, it is. It's absolutely directly. But like I asked you before, we're not seeing white people be the target of racism now. We're talking about setting a standard of equality in the future. I don't know why that's something that frustrates you so much, because we agree on like 99.9% of everything. Yes, we do. Other than I want to create an idea of equality.
So to me, when you say I'm not in fear of being, equal to black people, but this idea to me, it's crazy. You can create a huge, magnificent, beautiful, utopian world of equality.
Yeah, I have
fear of black people dominating white people.
No, but no. I'm attaching the value of potentially black people dominating white people based on your societal standards. My societal standards propagate equality. That's the difference. Even if you disagree, I don't know how you can't see by now what I'm trying to say. Because I'm saying
my house, man. My house only runs water twice a day.
Okay, I get the metaphor. What I'm saying is that if we want to create a society of equality, you have to treat everybody equally. Obviously, you need to contextualize other things. What you're saying is like you're setting a standard for inequality in the future, and like you're refusing to see how it could ever happen. If you,
let's say equity. I'm going with equity for now on for the rest of this conversation. I can tell that you conflating, you know what I'm saying, what it means to have access, resources, and opportunity with the word equality. So I'm gonna throw the word equality.
Right.
Equity. I know you didn't see the little thing with the little with the stilts, the 1 stilt versus 2 stilts versus 3 stilts.
Yes, I understand what that is.
Equal access to be able to view.
Yes.
If you 6 foot, the person 3 foot, the person 1 foot, and we all got one block, it might be equality, but it doesn't give us equity in terms of resource opportunity.
Yeah, but you know that's what I'm talking about. Like you're just trying to shift the dynamic. Yes, it is.
Talking about in the word of equity, if you still can be able to inscribe this idea of white people being fucked over, that's literally, to me, that understanding is what is able to justify colonialism. It's like we might be stealing land from the indigenous people. What if they steal from us? We might be killing indigenous people right now, but what if they kill us?
What I find very interesting about this conversation that we're having here is that it goes under this idea that like white people are inherently shitty, right? I think that's to an extent. Right?
Inherently shitty. That's not my fault.
No. Hold on. No. I'm not. What?
I'm taking about Papa Good. I'm taking it for me.
But like, that seems to be your argument. But there's no way that there'll ever be equality unless white people want to give up power. And you're miscontextualizing this idea that like most white people don't want there to be racism. Not understanding the pathway is one thing, but white people are. White
people don't want to give a race.
White people do want to get. Most white people are fine with giving up their power. That's I don't.
A damn lie. So how come ain't dividend?
So then why is slavery gone? Honestly, if white people were not, if white people
not gone, bro.
Slavery is not gone in America, you don't think that we?
No. Hey, 13th Amendment says United States federal government shall prohibit slavery except.
All right, let's angle it a little different. Is slavery as bad as it used to be? Is slavery as bad as it used to be?
It's worse.
No, that's just not. There's no. Is you're saying that we're cutting the legs off? There's no way. Now you're just being disingenuous. No, there's no way.
Pure numbers. During the plantation
what?
Time, there were 200,000 slaves. The 13th Amendment says that people convicted as a punishment of crime are slaves. There are 2 million prisoners now. So if you go from 200,000 to 2 million, how is that not worse?
So what you're saying is that the standard of living for black people is worse than it was during when you were when like black people were slaves. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that in terms of slavery, in the captivity of slavery,
okay, but that's okay, but like there's more people in general now. So
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that
you're trying to jump through mental gymnastics to avoid a question. Is the standard of living worse? You're saying that slavery is worse now. You're just being dishonest. Like we can't have an honest conversation if you're going to say that. You're saying slavery is worse.
I made a claim and I told you what my claim proves.
Yeah, but it's not. My point is that we're shifting slowly to a point where black people have more power. And that only happens if white people give up power. How do you disagree? You're saying you're saying that you're living worse.
The economic gotten bigger. The economic
okay, that's fine.
To 2020, it's gotten exponentially bigger. So
yes,
when you say it's
but that's a general statement. The income inequality is worse for everybody, not just black people. Specifically speaking, are you worse? You're making these reactions as if I'm asking complicated questions. You're trying to give me a complicated answer. Are you in a worse stance now than you would have been under like in the 1700s?
If I'm more likely to be held captive, no, fam. Like.
There's no. No, I'm not a liberal. I'm not liberal. So this.
Yeah, you a leftist, man.
No. I would consider myself a new age conservative. Anyway, get off the labels. You're saying right now that slavery is worse now. There's just no way to have an honest conversation with you.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there are more people held captive
in prison
in 2020 than it was.
There's more people. There's more people in prison. Sure.
Legislators, bro. Does the 13th Amendment not say the United States federal
listen.
slavery except?
Listen,
what? In schools that
there's more people in prison now. There's more people in prison now, right? They're basically slaves. That's what you're saying, right? That's what you're just saying. Like that. But you're not contextualizing the actual overall population. I don't understand. I'm asking you a simple question. You're honestly, I'm asking you a simple question just to propose the idea that like black people are slowly gaining some form of power. And we're not there yet. And you're just refusing to acknowledge that somehow it was worse back then.
Afro-pessimism.
Was it worse?
Afro-pessimist.
So then you're acknowledging your bias. You're constantly pivoting. You still haven't given me an honest answer of whether standards are worse.
Progression, your understanding of progression is parasitic onto black people.
I don't think that's true.
Always focus on.
I don't think that's true.
Better how things have stayed the same.
No, I don't think that's true at all.
How things have changed, glossing over how things have stayed the same. My argument as an Afro pessimist is that. What you want me to say?
Simply put, what I'm asking you is: has there been any progression for black people in America whatsoever, in a positive way?
Some gains and some losses.
I would say overall it's a gain. Like I don't think that you can argue that it's not an overall gain.
I think that when you talk about the position of black people, you're trying to simplify and being a near gain or loss.
No. I'm literally just no. This all started in this one. No. Let's get back to what I originally asked. Simply put, what I had said was, listen, in order for black people to gain power, white people have to give up power, and white people are doing it. And you're like, no, that's not happening. And right there, and then I asked, okay, so then are things worse off now than they were back then? And then you pivoted, then you redirected the argument. Like you're refused. Yes, you did. Let go through it again. What I said was, hey, listen, for black people to get power, the people in power, white people have to give up power, right? That's just undeniable fact, right? You agree with that? In order for black people to have power in America, white people have to give up their power, right?
Listen.
Is that a true or false?
I think that this is a false. False.
So then how do black people get power then? I don't understand. I don't understand.
I'm just going to have to be very careful with my black
Why?
my platform. I have to be very careful with what I say. Shout out to the CIA and FBI. I got to be very careful with what I say. But let me just pose some rhetoricals back at you. Did the redcoats give the colonists power, or did they take it? Did the proletariat, the bourgeoisie, and French give power, or did they take it?
So your arguing is that black people took the power back. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm asking a question.
That's the analogy you're proposing.
You're gonna answer my question for me. When it comes to the American Revolution, the King George, we
took power. We took power. So we took power. So you're
power. I want to say, hey, class, everybody listening to this class, we see that when it comes to power, from a psychological standpoint, one does not give up power. Power is taken.
So you're saying black people took power in the United States?
I'm not saying that.
So what the hell are you saying? Then what was the point of your analogy if you're not going to admit, like, hey, black people need to take power? We're trying to both acknowledge that we need more power for black people, and you're being dishonest in your entire argument to a point where you won't even admit that, like, black people somehow have higher standards of living now than they used to. It blows my mind.
Papa Good. It is though, Papa Good. If I have 1 million followers and I tell people to take over the government, you know, have you ever heard of COINTELPRO? Have you ever heard of COINTELPRO?
Just get to your point, please, because like all these analogies are just such redirections. They're such redirections, man.
My point is that when black people of my stature talk about things like taking power, they're murdered and they're killed.
Okay. Let me back up then. Okay, if what you're saying is that you can't say what you can't. I can't. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. No, I'm conceding that to you. That's fair.
But listen though, you can concede there. You can identify on the individual level. That and the white leftists and the fucking Antifa, y'all can talk about burning shit up. Talk about tearing shit down. If my black ass do that, fam,
I agree.
Goddamn, homeland security might be my front door.
Like, sure. I can totally agree.
To me, this proves and illustrates my point about power on the individual level, bro.
Sure. No. But we agree. But we already agreed about it. We already agreed with that. We've already agreed with that.
I don't know how you can go and make the hypothetical and say that. But what if white people didn't have that power? It's like, bro,
simply put. No. Simply put. Okay, so like we're gonna keep talking in circles, right? I understand your perspective. I don't know that you necessarily understand mine. I understand why you've been dodging some.
Because I do want to understand your perspective.
Okay. So let me propose it. Just do me a.
I want to ask. I'm going to tell you. I'm thinking.
Okay, answer the question. Okay.
And listen, this is not an argumentative question. This is a question of clarity.
Sure.
So, are you saying that if we don't change the standards of how we define racism, we potentially run into the future of re-inscribing racism because we have these bad standards?
Well, what I would say is that we're not trying to reassign what racism is something that like your perspective is, because right now racism is technically just any type of prejudice based on ethnicity. But yeah, my
that's not what racism is, bro.
It is. It's literally the dictionary. All right, I'll pull up the
Put it up.
We'll pull it up right now. All right, it's prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against a person or people based on the basis of their membership of a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that's marginalized. But the word "typical" doesn't mean always. Like, there's no way we can have a contestant on that. Dictionary. What?
To me, you about to try to explode the word typical. We've already acknowledged right now in the status quo when it comes to hate crimes that white people don't experience it.
Yes.
So I don't know how you're going to trivialize the word.
I'm not trivializing anything. I'm accurately contextualizing what the word typical means. It means typically most of the time. Most of the time. So I'll give I will try to like restate what I'm trying to say one last time, right? like we said, we've already established that systemic racism is impossible to be used against white people in today's society, right? We agree with that. 100%. Systemic racism exists. White people can't be the victim of it in any capacity, right? We're focusing on an individualized.
Typically.
Oh, typically. I'm sorry. Typically. Well, sure. Typically, systemic race. Well, that's not the definition of systemic racism. That's the definition of individualized racism, right?
Yes, and if you read the second definition on individualized racism, it would talk about systems and institutions.
Sure.
Are you reading from Merriam-Webster or are you? Which one are you reading from?
I just Googled it. Which one would you like me to read?
Okay.
We're getting off track. Let's just restate. Let's stay on course.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, first of all, the what the language suggests is what I'm saying, but it doesn't even matter because we're talking about societal constructs. So the word can be changed to what you think. You understand what I'm saying? Like everything's a societal construct. I'm not saying that as a diminishing factor to your perspective. I'm saying that like you agree with you're validate trans people, right? Yeah. 100 years ago, there was no such thing as trans, right? That's a changing societal standard, and we're creating new definitions for words. Like from a societal perspective, that's
the perfect example.
That's what I'm right. So my point is that we're shifting as a society.
But in this position, power is the ability to define the phenomenon and make it act in a desired manner. Our ability to define phenomena is how we make them act in a desired manner. We can acknowledge in history there was a time the phenomenon we know now as being trans was not defined as being trans.
Yeah, right, exactly.
My future society that construct a different way, we can come up with a new word to come up with a new phenomenon.
Yes.
The word in terms of racism, white people experiencing it right now, that is not how it happens. It's like you can acknowledge that in way back when the word trans was not prescribed to the phenomenon of birth.
So
good in the future, Papa Good. If you have a phenomenon, because right now we acknowledge that racism does not acknowledge white people being the victim of it. You both acknowledge it. We say hate crimes. You can go back and look at the film. Now, if we go in history, I mean, in the future, we can acknowledge
systemic racism. Yeah,
this phenomenon. We would not call it racism. We would call it something else.
Right.
You and I, we can both smart. We can come up with one to call it right now.
I want to define it as racism, right? Within context. Because here's my thing. If I make it very simple, hold on a second. Just hold on a second. Because we agree on like 99% of everything. It's literally this one point. I'm going to re-explain it, and like hopefully you can.
This point is so big, though. This point is about power.
No. Just let's. You and I
have about how power operates and functions.
No, we don't. Not at all. No, we don't.
Yes, we definitely.
No, we don't. There's. I know we don't. No, it's not because we've already acknowledged like systemic racism wise. Like, I totally, as a white person, generally have more power than you. I've already acknowledged that. We're not arguing over power dynamics. We're arguing over the benefit. We're arguing over the benefit of a word. That's what we're arguing here. No, we're not. Yes, we are. That's what I'm. We're arguing over the benefit of a word for the propagation of an equal society.
Yes. I'm arguing about how that word was created by particular people for particular people.
Yeah, but
particular people.
Sure.
Come up with a new phenomenon. We have to come up with a new word, bro. The phenomenon you're talking about when the original curators of the term racism did not think of somebody look like Papa as being a victim.
No, they didn't.
That matters, bro.
Maybe though, because I'm a little Jewish, so I might have died.
New word, new phenomenon, bro.
So do you want to just come up with a new? That's the language. Okay. So what you were saying is that we should come up with a whole brand new word.
Yes, we can listen.
But wait. Would we apply that word to everybody?
No, we don't apply the word.
All right, so then it just doesn't change anything. It doesn't do anything any good for society.
Listen. I'm gonna try a different way. I'm gonna try this how I explain to my baby boomers when they go to georgeleespeaks.com and I give them a unlearning or a unconscious concept of racism. Right, that's how we can think about it. Right. Oppression and power. They're systems that's based off of exclusivity.
Yes.
Meaning that what makes it powerful is that everybody cannot access it. That's literally what makes the system of power. It cannot be accessible to everybody. If everybody can access it, it is no longer a system of power.
Sure.
See what I'm saying?
No, I've always acknowledged that though. You're not really explaining to me anything new.
So we can acknowledge that on this level right now in 2020, we can acknowledge that power operates off exclusivity, meaning who can access this power, who cannot access this power. If you can say that everybody can access the victimization of racism, that literally makes the term go away. about it like this.
I don't think
if
that's
everybody
true.
can experience poverty, listen, poverty is real, right?
Sure.
But we cannot say that because a rich person, you know what I'm saying, fucking lose a couple $1 million on the
no. But okay, no. This is the perfect. This is actually a perfect example of what I'm talking about. So you said you're paralleling like black and white to rich and poor, right? Like in the idea, right? You're saying that a rich person can never experience poverty, but there is an extreme off chance that that rich person could lose everything and experience poverty. And that's what I'm saying when it comes to the black versus white dynamic, or white versus black dynamic, rather. But we've acknowledged it's an outlier. We're acknowledging it's an outlier. Like I'm saying, we're agreeing on almost everything but the concept of this word. Yes, we are, though. I think you're refusing to see it.
Revolution of the proletariat versus the bourgeoisie.
Okay,
what you're saying is that I know you know Marxism. I know you know Marxism, don't you?
Probably not. No, not that well. No.
Shit, you finna learn some Marxism today, right?
All right, let's learn some Marxism today.
The class struggle.
Yeah,
it's not a Marxism thing. It's literally textbook economics of class, bro. So what we say, this is what we don't understand, right? Mm-hmm. There's a class structure that structures the system in terms of the bourgeoisie, the ruling class being the bourgeoisie, right?
Sure.
That's what we know. Bourgeoisie goes into poverty. Mm-hmm. They're no longer seen as the bourgeoisie. You see how the label changed based on your position?
So are you saying that once white people are okay? So if I okay, great point. So what you're saying is that once white people hold on. You're talking about poverty, right? Like money is like generally unracist. We have a poor distribution of it that has a negative impact on black people. But what?
Money inherently racist.
No, it's not. That's emphatic. That's just an accuracy. What I'm saying. Okay. Let me just rephrase it because we're gonna go off on another tangent. We're gonna go off on another tangent, and it's gonna get us nowhere. Let me just explain what I'm trying to say. Before we get off on a whole fucking tangent that's gonna do zero benefit to this conversation. Hold on. Let me just get it out.
I understand it, and you don't think that money is inherently racist, which is funny to me. But let's get it.
Okay. Anyway. What you're saying is that once the ruling class loses all their money, they're no longer the ruling class, right?
Ask me again.
What you're saying, once the ruling class loses all their money, they're no longer the ruling class.
Right.
So when white people lose all their power, are they no longer white?
That's a great question.
Yes.
That's a great question I would love to think about.
And that's where we're talking about going. So we're talking about trying to abolish the concept of race. And I'll give you, because I know your perspective. I know your perspective.
Oh, no, but you see how it's solved though. Like to me, I think you just solved it. If white people lose their power, they're no longer considered white because the white identity is structured by what it means to have power. So when you ask me the conversation, when you ask me the question, hypothetical, well, George, in the future, what if white people experience racism? That understanding of them even being identified as white.
This is where we're having a problem. This is where we're having a problem, right? In this like one nuanced area of the conversation, because you're saying like once white people no longer have the power, then race doesn't exist anymore. Hold on. Once white people no longer have the power, race doesn't exist because white people created race. Is that basically what you're telling me?
I would definitely add more complexity to it, bro. I think this is why I'm getting frustrated with you, Papa Gut. Mm-hmm. I'm making complex analysis, and then you try to regurgitate it and simplify it in a way that doesn't account for the unique complexities and nuances of the reality that we live in, bro. If shit was so simple, Papa Gut, we wouldn't be living in no more, bro.
Okay, but if you can't elevate or pitch your idea, then it's not like what I'm saying is like accurate to what you're saying. Like I'm simplifying.
You're trying to simplify it in a way which simply regurgitated and simply, consumed.
Yeah, I'm making it easier to consume. But okay, so what I'm trying to establish here. I'll just get to the point again. I'm just gonna because I understand what you're saying. You acknowledge that you don't understand my perspective. Okay, so we both have a starting point for society where we are right now.
I disagree with your perspective.
No, but you said you didn't understand it at all before. You literally said you don't understand it. Yeah, you said I'm disagreeing with your perspective.
I disagree with it. I don't understand it because I disagree with it because there's a logic issue with it.
I don't think there's a logic issue at all. In fact, I think mine's logical. I think there's a logical issue. Let me try to get you to understand it. Okay, we're coming off of the same basis, right? We're coming off of the exact same basis. Where like we're basically agreeing almost 100%, other than the idea of what a word is. That's really what we're arguing at the end of the day. right? What I'm saying is that the pathway based on yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Bro, but Tyler, Tyler, keep on. You acting like Tyler Blunt.
I'm not acting like Tyler Blunt. You're
You're
doing your best to try to diminish my perspective at any chance that you get because you're getting frustrated.
Papa Good, I already asked you when white people create. We both acknowledge white people create the term racism.
Yes, we did.
I asked you when white people create the term race, was white people intended to be a victim?
Your
of racism?
entire
You said no.
Yes, I said no, and yet like you're somehow right, and that to you means you won. But the idea that the idea of race is going to disappear once white people are no longer in power is not. It's just not practical unless you set ourselves up for that. Your entire argument hinges on the fact, or the idea. Your entire argument hinges on the idea that once white people are no longer in power, that race literally ceases to exist, despite the fact that everybody's been living in a society where they acknowledge and see race. Everybody sees race. White people, black people, Hispanic people. We all see race. So it's not going to go away. You think it disappears when white people lose power. That is just not going to happen.
Hey, so in this hypothetical world that you prescribe and being pure and being, you know what I'm saying, non-existent of racism, how do we get to that world and how is this world structured?
Yeah.
So I think that you bullshitting me right now.
So the idea.
How does it happen?
The way to get to a world that's equal is to make sure that we set standards of equality moving forward.
And what do white people have to do in order for this to happen?
Give up their power.
And did we just acknowledge historically that there has never been nobody that gave up power?
We're literally sitting here as like, I'm willing to give up power. And I would say most white people nowadays are fine with giving up power. And we've already talked about dynamics where the reality is the people who have to give up power aren't even necessarily white. It's rich people. White people have to give up their power.
White people are not crazy.
You're just
with all respect, bro. You saying you give up power does not mean that the people at the top 1% white people is not going to get that power, bro. Listen.
So okay. So then let's rephrase it. There's a ton of fucking white people who are ready to fight with black people to take power from the top. You're generalizing and saying all white people are effectively demonized in some capacity when the real true person is at the top.
I've never used terminology of demonization.
The terminology of removing race. Whoa, but you're saying that white people can't experience like individualized racism.
You and I both saying that white people can't experience racism.
No, individualized racism.
You and I both literally.
No, we didn't. What are you talking about? We acknowledge systemic racism, and then I said that there are situations where white people can experience individualized racism. It's just uncommon.
Make sure we're doing this in good faith. Did you acknowledge in the beginning of this, if we looked at the stats of hate crimes, what did you say that white people will make up hate crimes?
Almost none. Like a target wise, probably almost none.
Do hate crimes?
You're not. Yeah, they do. You're not proving anything. What I'm saying, I'm not saying that black people are as racist as white people.
How can you say that white people experience racism on an individual level?
They can still experience. If you walk up to me if you walk up to me as a black person and hit me because I'm white, that's racist. Somehow that doesn't make sense to you.
Papa Good.
Yeah.
Are you familiar? I'm about to use another analogy. Are you prepared?
Hopefully it's a decent analogy, and then I'm prepared.
This analogy has to do with power and how power is constructed and how history works.
Now, I'm ready for your analogy. Let's get through the analogy again. Yeah, sure.
Listen, Ike and Tina Turner was in a domestic violent relationship. Ike was beating Tina's ass for 15 years. What you're saying is that in year 16, if Tina decides to whoop Ike or defend herself, you're ethically saying that Tina is an abuser.
Nope, that's not at all what I'm saying. You're proposing an individual. There's specific. This is what I'm saying is that you, as a black person, can still be racist towards a white person who's done nothing to you. You're generalizing and saying all white people. This is what it blows my mind. You're saying all white people. Hold on. You're saying. No. It's enough of the analogies because they're not as intelligent as you think. You're trying to pivot off the main argument. The simple argument here is that white people are in power. Setting up a standard exempting white people from being able to be victims of racism is going to lead to an unequal society. Okay? Just because white people will lose their power doesn't mean that racism will cease to exist unless we as a society abolish it.
racism is structured by white.
Are you living? Because this is the real world. This isn't theory. Everybody subscribes to the idea of race: white, black, Hispanic, Asian. Everybody.
Both in the real world.
But once white people aren't in power, that doesn't mean that race ceases to exist. You have this fantasy idea that racism exists, will go away if white people are no longer in power. It's impractical.
Structured by white.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not going to disappear once white people are not in power. It doesn't matter. It's not a fucking magical spell. It's not. It's not Harry Potter. It's not a magical spell. Once white people are no longer in power, the idea and concept of race will still continue to exist. What we want to do is make sure we set up for a society that denies the idea of race existing. And you can't do that by creating different standards for different people. It is simple, and you're overcomplicating it to force a narrative. That's the reality.
Listen.
I've just explained it to you so incredibly well, and you're refusing to acknowledge it.
In 2020, is racism defined by white people's power?
When white people are no longer in power, does racism cease to exist? It's a very simple question. Answer that question.
You said what?
When white people are no longer in power, does race cease to exist?
Yes.
And then that's where I just disagree. It's not going to happen. You have this idea that people aren't living in the...
etymological standpoint, from a standpoint of how we construct words and how we construct definitions, the word racism is literally structured by the white-black paradigm, the white-black binary of white people being on top and black people being at the bottom. That is literally how the concept of race is structured.
And we're living in a world where everybody acknowledges race. It's not going to disappear once white people are not in power. That's just not going to happen. I don't know. Have you never experienced racism again from like a Hispanic person?
Anti-blackness, yeah. The whole world anti-black.
Yeah, that's my point. So if the whole world's anti-black, then how is it that once white people are no longer in power, that... But you're acknowledging what I'm saying. You're trying to... There's an
entire literature base that makes distinction, literally an entire literature base.
That's great.
Over 20 years old. That makes distinctions between anti-blackness and racism. You should go to that part of the library and read.
Okay, but again, racism doesn't cease to exist once white people are no longer in power. You've acknowledged that you've received racism from more than just white people. So you're trying... It doesn't matter the history of the word. It doesn't. Everybody subscribes to the concept of race. It's not going to cease to exist. It's just a fact.
So if that is true, if that is true to you and your comment section.
So no, not just my comment section.
How come there isn't an equitable representation of white people being victims of racism when it comes to hate crimes? Where's the data at?
You're conflating what I'm saying. You're completely misinterpreting what I'm saying intentionally to force your narrative. I'm not saying white people are current. I'm not saying right now that white people are heavy victims of racism. What I'm saying is that as we move, people
that make the definition of racism, they dead and gone.
What I'm saying is that moving forward, if we want to eliminate racism, the concept of race, we need to set equal standards moving forward as power dynamics shift to propagate equality. And your perspective on racism does not do that. That's what I've said multiple times, and that's the reality.
This is talking about unicorns, my guy. Listen,
no, honestly, no, I'm not. My argument is very logically sound. It is very commonsensical, and you're going through mental gymnastics. So yes, it is. I'm guaranteeing you that it is.
I'm gonna ask you a simple question.
No, you're going to ask me a complicated question that's going to be a complete pivot. But go ahead.
Simple question. What would it take for more white people to be seen as victims of hate crime on an individual level? We can acknowledge
a shifting power dynamic. A shifting power dynamic.
How does this shift in power dynamic happen?
That's what we're going to talk about next, how to end systemic racism. But basically, we have to end systemic racism. We have to add equity. We have to add equity to black people.
Let's get into this next. How do we solve racism?
Well, hold on. Let's What?
How can we solve for racism on the individual level for white people that doesn't typically happen?
We're not trying to solve it. We're not trying to solve racism for white people. We're trying to set a standard that doesn't try to reverse the oppression. It just doesn't. I don't.
Nobody listen, nobody should experience racism, right?
Yeah, sure.
So when we start talking about coming up with solutions for racism,
Yes.
how do we come up with the solution for white people typically not experiencing hate crimes? How do we solve for that?
There's nothing to solve. You're misinterpreting what I'm saying.
Exactly, bro.
No,
no,
it's not. No, because you're not understanding. We agree on the basic. I've proposed.
That is not happening. Your hypothetical creates an impact that is not happening. Your hypothetical creates a reality that is not happening. Your hypothetical.
You can keep saying it over and over again, but you're just completely not even looking to the future in any capacity. You're living in the now, and you refuse to see an idea of some kind of power shift. Like you're not acknowledging it. It's not even that you disagree. It's that you just don't understand. Because if you understood, you'd say, I get what you're saying. Because if you didn't understand, because if you understood, you'd say, I get it, but I disagree. And that's not what you're doing. You're refusing to acknowledge my argument. And that's why, we can't get anywhere, because you're not even listening to what I'm saying. You're spewing rhetoric without listening. No, you're not.
I think that I'm point refuting your arguments, and I think that in order for me to point for point refute your arguments, I have to listen to them.
No, right, but you're not. But you're not hearing what I'm saying. What I'm saying? Hey, we need to set a standard for equality in the future. You're saying, but there's no problem now. No fucking shit. My argument isn't that there's a problem now. My argument is that there could be a problem if we don't push forward in a way that's equal. And simply put, if you can make it so that white people could theoretically be the target of racism, then that's equality. Exactly. That's the fucking point that you're not acknowledging. You have this idea that you're just not acknowledging it.
Explain the exactly part again.
What I'm saying is that if we want to move forward equally, we need to push forward in an equal way. Right now, white people aren't experiencing individualized racism at anywhere near any other person of color. But if we want to shift the power dynamic moving forward, as we move forward, we need to make sure we hold to a specific standard of how people are treated. And that's why white people should be under the label of being able to be the targets of racism, even though it does not happen now, because this isn't the entirety of life. It is a very narrow-minded idea that we are everything. We're going to die, and then there's going to be generations that move forward. And if we want our generations to move forward in a way that's equal, we need to set equal standards.
Damn, I think that we have to come up with standards that are able to account for the reality that we live in.
We already do. It's called systemic racism. That's the thing. It is. We already have that standard. We understand systemic racism. We understand that only black people, white people cannot experience it. Now we're talking about the potential of individualized racism. And you want to go even further, if there was like a reverse world, white people potentially could be the victims of systemic racism, but they're just not. We're talking about power dynamics. And there's no reason to not label white people as the potential victims of individualized racism, because it gains nothing for society. There's no education factor, and it's just going to rally white supremacists.
Education factor.
Zero. There's a zero education factor to exempting white people from being able to be the targets of racism, individualized racism.
A lot of education we learn from when we try to prescribe on hate crimes onto non-black nation states and how they're sanctioned, how economically and politically they lose a whole bunch of representation. So let's take the what's going on right now.
You're talking about systemic racism.
Vince, I'm giving you an example right here. Mm-hmm. I'm literally giving you an example right here.
Yes.
In this example, we see that white people are literally being forced out of their land on farmlands in Zimbabwe because they are white farmers.
Yeah, but that's because they're taking their land back. No, are they taking their land back? Aren't they taking their land back?
Yes.
No. Hold on. Hold that thought right there. This is no. Wait. Hold on. This is, I think, perfect. Maybe this is where we're having the lack of understanding of what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that every interaction between a black person and a white person is racist, right? You taking your land back, it's not racist. No, it's not racist. They're taking their land back. What I'm saying is we need to contextualize the whys. And in Zimbabwe, it's not racist because they're taking their land back. No, hold on. But there can be scenarios where white people can be racist towards black people. I'm not saying, though, that it is anywhere near. That's what the reverse.
Only have future. You only have sci-fi future.
No. Don't diminish the argument. It's not sci-fi. It's actually rather practical. If you don't see that, then that's on you. It's not sci-fi. No. Hold on. It's not science fiction to consider a world where the power dynamic shifts towards equality. That's practical. It's idealist at best. That's practical. But what you're
right now, you cannot fathom.
Let me ask you a question.
Afrofuturism,
Can I ask you? Can I ask you? Let me ask you a question.
Scientifically possible.
Right. Let me ask you a question. Okay. We've already established that, like, basically the real propagators of racism right now are like rich white people in like the upper class, right?
Nah.
That no, you don't think that most of who is just all white people are?
I think. Listen, being a poor black Southerner, I would argue that on an individual level, the poor white people, some of the most racist people ever.
Probably.
As a matter of fact, on an individual level, poor racist white people are definitely more racist than rich white people.
You think so? Okay, so that but in my so now we're getting into like an anecdote because in my area, the most racist people are Hispanic people. Like when it comes when it comes to black people,
Hispanic, I think that when you say Hispanic, are you talking about descendants of Cortez Hernandez?
We're talking about like first gen. We're talking about like migrants from like the South and like South America.
What are they race though? What's their race? You telling me they nationality, ethnicity? What's their race?
Like
South America got people that's from
Salvadorian people from Salvador, Peru, and Ecuador.
Are they? Listen. Are they?
What are you getting off? You're getting. We're getting. No. We're going off. We're going off. It doesn't matter. You're going off on a tangent.
My point. Matter.
No, it doesn't. What's
the conversation about race and you're conflating ethnicity?
No. Right now, no. You're misinterpreting. No. You're misinterpreting the current conversation. Is specifically about the anecdote of the racist people. In your area, the most racist people are white people. In my area, from what I've seen, the most racist people are Hispanic people. Tons of like.
Papa good. You know, Papa good.
Yes.
As a white man.
Yes.
That acknowledges that you cannot experience racism. How in the hell is you gonna tell me the most racist people in your time, fam? How can you tell me that? You can acknowledge that in the status quo in 2020, white people cannot experience racism. Why should we go with what you say?
Who do you think I'm saying that these people are racist towards? You're assuming it's white people when it's like black people, 100%.
I'm acknowledging that it's white people, and what I'm saying is that you, as a white man, cannot speak for the level of racism that black people experience from Hispanic people compared to white people.
Okay,
I'm telling you, we acknowledging that the racism happened where you happened at, they black. You are not a you are.
So you're saying that like I can't look or exist in a situation. So I can't exist. No, I can't exist in an anecdotal space where I go, oh, Hispanic people. I just can't like exist. Like I can't sit down. Hold on, I can't sit down at like the lunch table. Hold on, let me just get my point out. I can't sit down in the lunch table and hear like I can't sit down at the lunch. That's not what I'm saying, though. I can't sit down at a lunch table and go, okay, every single Hispanic person is like being outwardly and aggressively racist towards black people, while white people just simply aren't doing it. Like that's just that's what we're talking about.
Comparative analysis and say, therefore, in my area, Hispanic people are the most racist. That's what I'm saying specifically.
That's from my experience, from my anecdotal experience. Yeah.
You can say those people over there are racist. Mm-hmm. You cannot make the comparative analysis and say that those people over there are more racist than those people over there because you don't experience racism. Me as a cisgender person, I cannot say.
So So basically, I simply just can't. I just
can't say they the most transphobic. How can I say that?
So I can't. Okay. So basically, what we're saying is I can't make an observation about racism. Okay. So.
No.
That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying. But you're saying I can make an observation without having any weight. Here.
Is it possible to make an observation without saying that one thing is better than the other? Can I make an observation of you right now without saying that person over there is worse than that person? Can I still observe what's going on?
What I can observe is that
bro, is so nasty. The reductionism is just
What are you talking about? What I'm saying is that in the spaces that I've been in, like white people aren't racist towards black people because I live in a more liberal area. But like Hispanic people are running rampant when it comes to it. That's simply what I'm saying. Hey, so let's
watching this right now. Can y'all let him know in his comment section how asinine his statement
Why
is?
Do you wait? Can I
experience racism, but he has the ruler to measure how racist and or non-racist a person is.
I find I find it interesting that you feel the need to just constantly reference the chat as like a cheerleading squad.
I can't see him.
I can't either. I don't care what they say. They could all disagree with me. It doesn't mean like it doesn't add or it doesn't change the validity of arguments.
Always acknowledge the audience who you're speaking to. So when I acknowledge your comment section, I'm acknowledging that's my audience right now.
Yeah.
I'm not making a claim.
I know, and you're trying to bring the audience into it as like a rallying point. Yeah. Listen. let's get back to the brain point. I'm going to redisplay my idea. You redisplay your idea, and we're going to end off with it. Okay. You're not going to contest each other's ideas at this last point. We're just going to simply put them out there. And then this way, people in the chat, they can make up their own decision. So I'll let you go first. So we're specifically, this conversation was specifically about whether you can or can't be racist towards white people. So just give me your like one final talking point. I'm not going to interrupt you. You propose like what your perspective is, and then I'm going to propose my perspective.
I don't know why you. We've already agreed that white people don't experience racism on
No,
an individual level.
No, we have. Look, just we're talking about whether white people should be. Hold on. Well, I'm going to restate what we're talking about. We're going to restate, and then we're specifically talking about the benefits to exempting white people from ever being the targets of racism, right? We're basically talking about the word racism, whether it can apply to white people. That's what we're talking about, right? That's this whole argument. So you give out your final thing, your final flow, and then I'm going to give my final flow, and then we can talk about how to end systemic racism and the ways that we think that we can do that.
Hey, man.
For everybody that's focused on semantics, I'm gonna start this off. I got like 2 minutes or something.
No, do your thing. No time limit. Go ahead. Just don't take like a half hour.
I said the statement that all blurs. If I said the statement, I agree. I gotta get back to daddy duties. But if I said the statement that all birds fly, smart people know that all birds don't fly. But we understand a general claim can say that birds fly, right? If I say that typically birds fly, nobody would disagree with that. You feel me? But it still doesn't, you know what I'm saying, take away from the idea that generally birds fly. So when we say that, we put out the definition, Papa Gut and me acknowledge that right now in 2020, white people are typically not, or in many instances probably can't find evidence of white people being individually impacted by hate crimes. To me, this illustrates that white people on an individual level do not experience racism. I think that in order for you to say that in order for you to say that white people experience racism, you would have to erase the historical context that places us in the same space and time together. You know what I'm saying? I think that it would be unethical for someone to say that the Jewish person in the Holocaust was being racist towards a German. From a human standpoint, we can acknowledge that racial resentment and PTSD and historical trauma is going to be a real thing that happens when it comes to groups that have been historically oppressed. I think that it is so unethical and inhumane to be able to characterize white people as experiencing racism, because you'll be able to say that these particular people are racist to them, and it glosses over and erases all the history about systemic racism, all the history about colonialism, and you can't say that that history doesn't matter. What we can acknowledge is that the white people that create the concept of race and racism, they did that shit centuries ago. We still acknowledge that centuries later, when it comes to individual hate crimes on the individual level, we still see that the way they constructed the definition still makes it where they are not able to be accounted for. In closing, language is fluid. Language is transcendental. However, language is important enough to be able to use nuance and distinctions to be able to talk about what's going on in reality. In reality, Papa Gut wants me to create a standard that does not fit our reality. Go back to that metaphor I created. If I have a home and my home only lets me use water twice a day and in 2 rooms, it does not make sense for me to create a new standard with me, a utopian, like, you know what I'm saying, standard with me being able to use water all the time. First of all, if I go to one room that won't give me water, you say, what's the net benefit? The net benefit is that I will literally die, you feel me, of thirst, because I'm going to the wrong faucet. Because I'm living in my standards, say all the rooms in this house is able to give me water. We see that we have to create standards that are able to account for the world that we live in. I want to be able to live utopian world too. I'm not judged by the content of my character. The color of my skin and more the content of my character. We don't live in that reality. In closing, power is not giving up. Power is not giving up. CIA, FBI, COINTELPRO. I'm just a punk ass black teacher. I ain't trying to burn nothing down. I ain't trying to take nothing down. I'm trying to live a long life to be able to take care of my kids and my grandkids. I don't want no smoke. Whoever got my file. I'm not advocating for the overthrow no government. I ain't advocating to the revolution and like that. I'm just literally being able to regurgitate the shit that I've been trained from the institutions in this old country. Shout out to everybody in policy debate. Education is elevation. That's it.
I actually have a question really quick. So what's like your take on like Antifa and shit? Because it seems like you like, what is your take on like that kind of shit?
I think that
sorry.
I think that because most of Antifa is racialized as being like white leftist liberals. I think that they get away with. I think they get away with being able to wield violence in ways that I think that Black people are always already crushed with the hammer with. So I think that the Antifa's proximity to Black Lives Matter and Antifa's proximity to Black people is sometimes dangerous because we are more magnetized for the violence. We're more magnetized for the bullets. They're going to be able to burn shit down and say, ha, 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 ha. And then Black folks going to be saying hashtag consciously, just for consciously. And that's what I think about Antifa, really. You feel me?
No, that's fair. No, that makes perfect sense to me.
How they want to do, and Black folks got to bear the brunt of being held responsible for the shit that white leftists do, i.e. Antifa.
That's fair. No, I actually got that. That's why I was just curious. I didn't know.
Make sure, listen, because this is why, because I know that it came out. I was trying, I wasn't trying to be fallacious. Wasn't trying to run.
No, I think that
Black people in my position, when you have the ability to influence people, history shows that if you piss off people in power, they'll kill your ass or incarcerate your ass.
Okay.
And I don't want to be killed or incarcerated.
No, it's because I can understand Antifa just seems to be a bunch of dumb young white kids, for sure. So I because I don't want to generalize, but is that the general kind of perspective? That they don't really like Antifa.
I feel like amongst the Black community, there's a general. I'm meaning that every Black people see this, but there's a general understanding that the Antifa is the white leftists. Really young kids, young college kids that just tear up shit and do shit and make it where Black Lives Matter. Black people have to be held accountable for what they do.
Okay, that's fair. All right, I just want to know. I was actually curious listening to that. Okay, so now let me close. Let me get my statement out here. All right, don't interrupt me. All right,
I ain't gonna call a blunt man you and be like, "Hey, so you want me to answer this question randomly that I know you don't want me to answer, just to cut you off?"
What's that? Is that what Tyler did? I didn't watch the debate that you guys had.
That's how he did me in my final speech. He was like, "I know you're kicking my ass right now, so I'm going to interrupt your speech and ask you a random question that has nothing to do."
No. At this point, I think that our closing statements are just supposed to be because this is honestly, I'm going to say when I start with my closing, regardless of the fact that I disagree with you, I actually found this very stimulating. Right, it was a very stimulating conversation. I enjoyed it a lot. I think people they don't like it. I love it. I found it very stimulating, even though I disagree that there was a lot of things that I actually picked up. So I can appreciate that. But what the point I was trying to make is listen, there was a point that you had made about me oversimplifying it, and that might be true. But I do believe in a world where you can elevator pitch things to people. And the point I was first trying to make is that I'm not saying white people are the victims of racism right now. That's not at all what I was trying to say. What I'm saying is that to move forward in my potentially very idealized version of society where everybody is equal and we abolish race, in order to do that, we need to set a standard now that helps us move forward equally, even if it's unfair. Right? Because let's acknowledge that the reality. No, hold on. Just fucking live it. The reality of the situation is that we can label some acts from black to white as racist while contextualizing it, which is what we do now. Because there's no instances, I don't think, there may be very few instances of actual hate crimes, which means that my thought process is it's actually being demonstrated to work. It's actually being it's being demonstrated. When you can maintain the idea of equality on paper, but also contextualize the differences of systemic racism and the impacts of that, where again, there's where you're seeing no situations of white people seeing that violence, then what I'm saying is still functioning in society that we should maintain the concept of racism being able to be targeted towards white people. What I'm saying is that moving forward, so we have to maintain that standard of equality so that once the power shifts, then it doesn't crumble on itself and all of a sudden white people are the oppressed, right? Now, that might sound like some kind of white crybaby bullshit. Maybe that's not the way I'm pushing it off, because the reality is that I'll be let's be honest. And this is the unfortunate reality. Racism isn't going away anytime soon. It's not going to be gone in my generation. It's not going to be gone in my kids' generation. It's not going to be gone in my grandkids' generation. Maybe it'll be gone by the time my great-grandkids are born. What I'm saying is that because there's going to be so many socially different people to move through, if we pick up the concept of that white people can't be the targets of racism, as that power dynamic does shift, and I do genuinely think it will shift, you're going to start seeing slowly more racism against white people. Now, it may be more justifiable, but we'll get to a point where it may not be justifiable anymore, especially as we get close to that equality. And there is a level of fear associated with, simply put, being oppressed as a white person, okay? That's the point that I'm trying to make. That's it. I just want an equal society. Now, we disagree on this whole thing, but now I want to get into the ways that we can start to remove systemic racism and how we can do that, because I think that'll be a really nice conversation. Let me just open my window more because it's hot as fuck.
Agreed. That would be a great conversation to be able to think about how do we get to this great utopian of where we don't have to think about these type of things.
Let me just. I just want to answer the point. Let me just answer my point. Sorry, I just remembered that you said that. Lastly, because we brought up the idea that white people created race. 100% true. But because we all live in the concept of race and we all understand and like we engage in it, we embrace it when we shouldn't. Once white people are no longer in power, I don't see it practical that race will simply disappear. That's the point I'm trying to make. I don't think it's going to disappear unless we actively make it disappear. And the only way to do that is by setting an equal standard while contextualizing like the world around us. When one of those ways is systemic racism. So yeah, now I want to get into how to solve racism, but I have to pee. So if you have like a little break you want to take, if you still have the time for it, because I still have the time for it.
Yeah, let me check in on my wife. I've been in here for a while. Right
Yeah. And then if not, we can set up another day. But let me just do a quick. I'm gonna run a quick ad, guys. It's a great way to support me. I'll be right back. I'm gonna pee.
So let's see, man. How you do this? There's a way I was watching this mug at first. Huh? Trying to do it, son. Just think like it's like if we can, I think that if we gotta spend our time and energy trying to solve problems that don't exist, think about how gaslighting it is. Think about the problems that are actually existing. That's how I think about that. You know what I'm saying? Think from a debate standpoint. You know what I'm saying? I used to always get mad at the policy teams when they created scenarios about like nuclear extinction that didn't exist, and they say that we have to solve for extinction. And I'm like, yeah, but that notion of extinction is not a thing. And it's how I think about this whole argument. Like as a debate coach, you feel me? Think about it from a policy debate standpoint. When policy teams create scenarios where they have to solve for an impact that's not happening, and they say that impact, if it happened, it would kill everybody. It's used to take away from how the impact's happening now, go over. I'm reflecting on myself right now, thinking from a debate standpoint, how I'm interpreting what you're saying.
Were you talking to me?
Nah, I was.
I'm about to say I was like, because I got in mid P. Last thing I forgot to add in my little closing is that I don't think that there is a net gain to be had by excluding white people from racism. I forgot to say that. But anyway, so you have time? Do you have time for this conversation?
Yeah. I got a little time right here.
If you don't have a lot of time, you might want to come back.
Let's schedule another time.
Yeah, probably like next.
Are you good on Mondays, Wednesdays, or Fridays in between like 2 and 5? Because when my kids ain't around, I can really be loud.
Maybe I should wait for your kids to be around then, huh? Yeah, no, I think I'm totally available. Maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday, actually, all 3 of those days I stream in the afternoon. We could probably set something up for maybe tomorrow or Wednesday or some shit like that. We'll look at it in the DM.
Shout out to people in Seattle. I actually got a workshop. I actually do a lot of diversity and inclusion workshops, specifically about the unconscious consciousness of racism, ableism, classism, and sexism. And a lot of times when I do my workshops about the unconscious consciousness of racism, when I get to the part about power, that's the part I usually find I get the most. You know what I'm saying? Like responses from.
Okay.
That's just curious. I feel like I'm thinking about now. I put my facilitator cap on and thinking about when I do that part of my workshop, how can I incorporate the concerns that you've given into when I'm teaching and doing a facilitation workshop about like discrimination in the workplace.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's so funny because this was a lot more stimulating. I think that you saw that one girl who put up the clips of like our conversation about whether you can or can't be racist towards white people. And like she put it up there, and like there was just like a complete lack of understanding of why she thought the way that she thought, because she maintained a similar position to you, but she just didn't know what the fuck she was saying. You might have. You think you like commented on
Yeah,
EA?
I'm about to, yeah. I think that she knew what she was saying. I think that she just knew to the material and the information. And when you
Mhm.
knew to material information, that's going to impact how you're able to articulate and explain that shit.
Maybe.
I think that I have the benefit of having these conversations for the past like almost 10 years, or actually 10 years. I've been having these conversations for 10 years. So I feel like I'm well versed and I've thought about a lot of these things that's coming up, and I read a lot about this shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Sure.
Like
Yeah.
I've won championships with this type of literature base.
But this was definitely a lot more engaging and stimulating. I'll tell you that. I enjoyed this conversation a
Hey,
lot.
I can talk to you all. I can tell. I can do this. All
It was
day. I
fun.
can
Yeah. No,
all day.
I think people like it. This was a lot of fun. I actually enjoy like these types of conversations. They're a lot of fun. So
Actually, I think I liked it that you set it up as more of a conversation,
Yeah.
and less of a debate. I think it made it where the adversary nature of it went away.
Yeah, because you know what, this is already a heated topic, regardless of which
It's
side
already
you
the
sit on.
topic. You don't have to go to word
And then,
debate.
yeah, I fucking hate it. And then all of a sudden, you have 2 minutes to get out a point, and then it's like, why? Like, what are we doing here? You know, it's so stupid. And then the moderator.
Look, I know I can get passionate, worked up. I want to apologize for cutting you off. I wouldn't.
No. Don't even apologize. No, don't even worry about it. No, again, like I don't take it like when we're in the conversation space, it's like a whole thing. Once we're out of it, though, like as long as we respect each other, I don't give a fuck.
I want to show that, you know what I'm saying. I'm making my critiques and criticism of leftists and liberalism and things like that.
You know what's funny, because you brought up the idea of like me being like, I know that I have like leftist values, but I do kind of maintain more what I would call like new age conservative ideas. And like what I mean by new age conservative is I think that as we move forward, we're going to come to these positions of what the next step is. And I think that conservatives need to focus less on holding back at all costs, and focus more on like, what's the best way to move forward. And like, I come up from a position of like, I don't really believe in like big educational programs or, necessarily like a bunch of like welfare expansion programs. I believe in like a universal basic income. That's just like a much more widely and much more broad solution and comprehensive solution. And I believe that because it's on like the foundation of like individual choice with the handouts that you get, of how you want to utilize those handouts. Because I don't think that every area is going to benefit from like better schooling, to be honest with you.
I think that we have. I think I can make this argument and debate about resources in terms of value and the symbols. And I think that even if some people have more resources, if you can't change the value of the symbols that's situated around them, it don't matter, right? So I'm thinking about it from an educational standpoint. Me and my debate partner, we did a lot of rap and poetry in our constructive speeches. Even though we're debating against like Harvard and USC, that's what we use. You know what I'm saying? Debate. We use rap and poetry.
Does that confuse them?
Now we did a cross-sex debate.
Does it confuse them when you guys like do like poetry and rap to like Harvard, or do they do the same thing?
Oh no, they definitely confuse the shit out of it.
I'm sorry, it's just funny because I can imagine.
Why I'm top 20 in the decade is because a lot of the white teams that I debated against, they had no training, no critical thought when it came to thinking about politically, socially, economically, how policy impacts the hood. That's what I became an
Well, I think
expert
that's
on.
very difficult for a white person to even understand. Yeah, I get that.
But that was the weird thing, because I was talking about the libido economy. The libido economy is literally about your desires, your fears, your emotions. What I found is that I could use a popular J. Cole song that my opponents knew, but they didn't understand what the song was actually saying. So though they were able to read along with me in the lyrics, they didn't understand the actual substance and content the arguments was putting out. So that's the reason why I feel like I'm able to think about the libido economy and literally how.
What you keep saying that word? What is it that you're saying?
Find it for me. Go on, put it up for me. Go on.
Like something economy. You said. I just want to know what
libido. LIBINIDAL. Libido.
Oh shit! What the fuck? LIB. Hold on. I thought it was like libido, so I stopped there. Okay, so LIB.
Yeah, libido.
Oh, okay.
Libido.
Try to spell for me, even if it's not the right way, because it's gonna be better than me.
I'm typing it up right now.
A lot of new concepts that I've heard, so I want to actually look into them.
LIBIDENAL. I spelled it wrong, but I'm just.
That's fine. I can't even.
Libido economy.
I can't. If you could send me some reference material, that'd be cool. Because like even Google's.
I'll send you some Afro pessimism, Frank Wilson, like libido economy.
What if I sent you if I sent you white pessimism content to read? Would that be racist?
Nah.
You don't think so?
Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to learn the context. Context is important, bro. Context is important.
I agree with that. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Afro pessimism though is Afro pessimism is literally about those three tenets I was telling you about. How black people are like put like this. Here goes a little quick and dirty analysis of Afro pessimism.
Mhm.
Afro pessimism contends that black people now are still seen as slave, and black people are seen as being socially dead. And as a result of black people being socially dead, it is always seen as rational to place upon us what they call gratuitous violence. Gratuitous violence just means continual violence just because. You know what I'm saying? So literally saying that in the status quo, black people face violence just because there's no reason. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? Some instances, there's no reason why people face violence. It is face it because of civil society being situated upon black people's back. Literally saying
is that like a response to people who say like, oh, it's just a cultural thing? Is that what you're kind of relating it to?
It's a response to because being a cultural thing. Like Afro pessimism actually critiques all
okay, because it
modernity literature. Like
it sounds like what you're saying is that like based on this is that what you're saying is that society just accepts violence in black communities just because that's just the way it is.
Society accepts violence to black people regardless of the community.
Like, okay, it's just okay. That's just the way that the world is.
White over black. Light skin over dark skin. There's 7 continents in the world. Afro pessimism would contend that every continent in the world is structured white over black.
Okay,
and makes the argument that the middle passage, historically, the middle passage, when I was talking about this idea of black being seen as slave or black being seen as being dishonorable, Afro pessimism makes the argument that the middle passage was a new creation of a new people. What makes the analysis that says that Jewish people went into the Holocaust as Jew and came out as Jew. The world didn't buy into the whole and the entirety of Jewish people not having a language, not having a culture, not having a land.
Okay.
The Atlantic slave trade literally created where the African went onto the boat as African and came off as black, came off as slave. The middle passage created the identity what we know as black. You feel me? So Afro pessimism says that when black people or when African people became enslaved and went into the middle passage, it created civil society in a way that made it where politically, socially, economically, the world is always progressing based off of the suffering of black people. So I said anti-blackness is making the analysis that the entire world buys into the idea that black equals slaves. Jewish people had slaves, Native American had slaves. You know what I'm saying? Everybody bought into the idea that black equals slave. And then going to your example, Frantz Fanon, Afro pessimism gets a lot from this guy by the name of Frantz Fanon. He was this Algerian philosopher, and he talks about a lot what you were concerned with. Is when we're able to do away with colonialism, how do we create a world that is not still held content with the values and the ideas of colonialism? You know what I'm saying? Well, that's what Frantz Fanon writes about in terms of when we talk about creating these new worlds, are we going to create a new world with just the old shit we was worried about? Or how are we going to think about critically thinking about creating these new worlds? So I'm
right. That's where I come from is how do we create the most like the best world to exist? Yeah, right. That's what I was coming from.
So what Frantz Fanon talks about is the idea of even the descendants of the colonized being able to put their hat in with the colonized peoples, but never erasing the what brings you into that space and place, right? Because think about it like this. You and I are in America based off of settler colonialism and African, you know what I'm saying, slavery. Both of those things.
I guess I know. Well, shit, probably because I'm here just because like my parents came here or my grandparents. But like as a general, slaves,
like literally the ability for the nation state of America to exist is made possible through settler colonialism and chattel slavery. That's what makes America possible.
Sure.
What gave us the surplus of labor, what gave us the, you know what I'm saying, all that was literally the violence that was created and accumulated through the clearing and the building of Native Americans and the building of using labor of African slaves, you feel me? Or enslaved Africans. And I think that's where I'm coming from when talking about how power in the world is situated. So with Afro pessimism, and I guess it's right here, God damn it, CIA, I guess y'all got me a little bit, but listen, I want to buy you to die. You feel me? I want to buy you to die. I'm coming in peace. But Afro pessimism says the only way for us to solve this shit is to burn it down. It talks about the Haitian Revolution and how the Haitian Revolution, the only things the Haitians could do ethically was burn that plantation down.
Sure. Actually brings me to an interesting question because I've noticed that like within, I don't know if I call it the black, a lot of times it seems that like when people come over, Haiti is one of those places to like America, they seem to have like a hatred towards black people. And I don't know if that's something that you've noticed.
Yeah, anti-blackness is real.
Yeah, man. It's because it seems like most like black, I'll say migrants, is that the word that you call it? Come over and they have like this hatred. They seem to have like a hatred towards like black Americans.
Yeah, that's that anti-blackness I was talking about. Anti-blackness in this instance is just literally distancing yourself away from blackness and black people. And what we know is that African Americans have a unique way in how we're positioned within the African diaspora, because we went through the kind of some of the most brutal forms of slavery that literally stripped us away from the language of our nurturers, stripped us away from our culture, stripped us away from our land and all that shit. You feel me?
Sure. Yeah.
You know that a lot of the people of African descent that were slaves in the West Indies and the Caribbeans, some could argue, you know what I'm saying, that they have a different relationship, you know what I'm saying, to colonialism and slavery based off of, you know what I mean, the differences and how the Portuguese and the French and the, you know what I'm saying, how in the Dutch, how they did their slavery different than English and Americans.
Sure. Okay.
So I agree with you.
Yeah. No, I was wondering, because I know I met a lot of Haitian people, and like I've accidentally called them black before, and then like they don't like that. Yeah, they hate it.
They make a distinction.
They do.
In those instances, though, that's textbook anti-blackness. The distancing
what do you think
oneself from blackness and black people, that's anti-black.
Why do you think that they distance themselves from like black American people? Like what do you think that the motivation is?
Them 3 tenets, man. Them 3 tenets.
Do you think do you think it's a way to make themselves seem safer, or do you think that they actually dislike black people? Or do you think it's a mixture between the two?
A little bit of both.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
Yeah. I think a little bit of both. I think a little bit of both. I think that if you give me a pathologized group of people that I resemble, and you telling me that they lazy, you tell me that they don't work hard, you tell me that everything they go through is because of their own faults, I'm gonna make sure that you never identify me with them, because I don't want you to put in that stigma onto me. So if I'm Dominican, if I'm Puerto Rican, if I'm Haitian, if I'm Cuban, I'm gonna say I don't give a damn if the boat dropped me off there. You feel me? The boat dropped me off in the Americas. I'm still gonna say no. I know black. I'm Dominican.
I think
the distance one of.
I think that we could. I think that we could probably agree that the reason that that people distance themselves from black Americans, simply put, is like the culture that's been created in America based off of like the pretenses of systemic racism. It's a very violent cycle.
You see how the entire world has bought into that complete dishonor. The entire world has bought into this social death, including other people of the African diaspora, i.e., Cubans and Dominicans and Haitians. Even they have bought into those 3 tenets.
Do you know who what the hell is this? Do you know who Dr. Umar is?
Definitely know who Dr. Umar Johnson is.
Do you like Dr. Umar Johnson?
I like Dr. Umar Johnson when it comes to trying to build. I don't like Dr. Umar Johnson politics when it comes to black LGBTQ people and black women. I think that his politics on gender and sexuality are trash.
Oh, what is he, like a little dated on his ideals?
A little dated.
Because I've seen him.
He's basically a black conservative when it comes to he's a black conservative when it comes to sexuality and gender.
Because I've seen him talk about like how like black people shouldn't like marry white people, and like how he thinks that black people are just fundamentally like superior and stuff like that. Yeah.
To me, when he make those type of arguments, it contradicts him, because he looks up a lot to motherfucking Frederick Douglass. You feel me?
Yeah, like I've heard him talk about him a couple times.
A lot of Frederick Douglass. As a matter of fact, he claims to be one of the descendants of Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass had a white wife. You wouldn't be able to diminish all the work that
did he
was married to a white woman. Like, stop playing.
That's funny. Yeah, it's very. He's an interesting guy, because
people that didn't marry black people that have done a lot of work politically, socially, economically to building for black people.
Right. I saw like I've watched like the Breakfast Club with him in there, and it was interesting because what's the hell?
He's saying some smart shit, but
he's smart. He's smart. I would see. This is where I would say that he's a little racist. That's what my perspective on it. He's a little bit racist when you start saying that black people are inherently superior. And then like, you say that you shouldn't be race mixing when it comes to marriage. That's where I do say like he's a little racist. I still think he's smart.
I think that I would call that prejudice, because I'm looking at impacts and being about power and impacts. You feel me? I'm thinking about it as him saying that black people are superior politically, socially, economically. White people don't miss out on anything.
No, right, for sure. Like, yeah, no, see, that's
like, if the white man wants to lynch me, that's his problem.
Right.
If the white man can lynch me, it's my problem.
What I would say to that, though, I think that kind of like exemplifies what we're talking about. Because I think you acknowledge that framework is ignorant. Like what he said, you don't think it's ignorant? Yeah. So it's ignorant, but there's just no power to leverage with it.
Ain't no power.
And
he just a black man talking shit on Breakfast Club that can hurt your feelings. Because to me, I think that when white people talk about experiencing racism, y'all really talking about having y'all feelings hurt.
Right, but
I can acknowledge hurt feelings exist.
Right. But that's the thing, is because I didn't hurt my feelings when I heard that. I was like, it's just kind of racist. It's going to hurt the mentality.
I ain't saying you. I'm saying
No, I know, but I wouldn't.
general,
But see, I would call that racist. Of course, it doesn't have the power there, but like it's still ignorant and it's racist. And I think that's kind of where we come from with like our like. It's a very. I mean, honestly, it's a very. It's we have a very slight difference in interpretation. I think we actually have the same interpretation. It's just the label.
You know what I think about it? This way to understand. This way to understand it. This way to understand it. Right. From a legal perspective, we understand the difference between first-degree murder, second-degree murder, manslaughter. We understand that the end is death. Like a person died in every one of these instances, right? But we recognize in terms of motivation, intent, context, and power.
100%.
First-degree murder, second-degree murder, third-degree murder, manslaughter, how all those things are different, though all of them have an end result of death. I recognize that Dr. Umar Johnson is using race and racialization to be able to be negative towards the demographic. You know what I'm saying? And I recognize that it's bad. Like, for instance, anybody dying is bad. First degree murder is bad. I'm saying involuntary manslaughter is bad. Well, I'm acknowledging the distinction between first degree murder and manslaughter.
Right.
I think that when it comes to Dr. Umar Johnson, it's like that's manslaughter. That's not first degree murder.
I get what I understand what you're saying.
Bad, though.
I come from the perspective that like we can still differentiate like first degree murder and manslaughter when it comes to racism. Like, because I look at it more as, instead of first degree murder and manslaughter, I look at it more as like assault. So like if I hit you. Yeah,
I like that.
Like if I hit you, not because you're black, if I just hit you, that's assault. But if I hit you because you slept with my wife, now I have a reason to hit you, but it's still assault, and that's where I come from when it comes to race. So like, who has more justification?
Ground though, but even the law represents your idea to stand your ground and be able to defend yourself.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, actually, now because I have you here, I'm just going to ask you about it because I saw this the other day. I saw I Speak say something about it, and I actually disagree with him. Was it Walter Wallace?
My wife had to come in here and be like, "Nigga, come over here and come help these kids." I got my son in here.
If you need to go, you can go.
Good right now, man.
Yeah,
I got like at least 15 more minutes. Man, I got at least 15 more minutes.
Okay.
This is a conversation.
Then let me ask you: do you know the situation with I think it's Walter Wallace?
Definitely.
What do you think about that? Do you think he was justifiably shot?
I think that the Walter Wallace situation shows that we have a very racialized understanding of ableism in our country. I think that when you look at all the mass shootings of white people going into public spaces and shooting up folks, that mental health is used as a way to justify and or rationalize with that violence. I think that when black people suffer from mental health crisis, I think that we are always already seen as being mentally ill, so we don't get the benefit of the doubt. And that's how I see Walter Wallace's situation. I think that the law enforcement will call over there multiple times. I know the law enforcement will call there multiple times. They will call that situation knowing they were dealing with somebody that was. Is
that part? Can you send me something that says that? Because I didn't read that part. I was that there was multiple. Yeah, I'd like to know that.
I'm going to go to Google really. Like,
Google
really 3 times, like literally.
Because I know that they said he had mental health issues, but I didn't see that they knew that he had mental health issues.
Yeah, definitely. I'll send it to you right now.
Yeah. Because I would say that versus like other people are going. Well, I mean, even I would say that the difference is that like the way that they submitted to the cops, and obviously the person shooting up as terrible as it is, shooting something up, and then like completely submitting to the police. That's why they don't get shot. My perspective on it is that I feel like the police officers, they had the situation under control. They maintained a safe distance, so there was no reason to shoot the guy. Simply put,
I think that, and I think that I like your analysis in that, because I think I seen the same way. It's like, hold on, he has a butter knife.
I don't know if it was a butter knife. From my understanding, it was like a fucking knife. But either way, he did like a step foot. He was walking at them. He did like a jogging step, but then immediately stopped and started walking at them. They maintained a good 10, 15 feet. That was a safe distance for the cop. And then they shot him. It's like, well, so at that point, it's like, now you're kind of, I don't know. It's very uncomfortable to me. I understand that that guy was doing something wrong, but like, it just, if you can do everything in your power to not.
So many instances, man, of police being able to show so much refrain and preservation for humanity with dealing with mental crisis, white people. You know what I'm saying? I've posted some of my videos to TikTok. And I just think that there is a big difference in how fear is able to be used when it comes to policing. I think that when fear in black people, when it comes to policing, that's always going to be used as a justifiable reason to kill me.
That's fair.
Whether I'm reaching for a lighter, whether I got my hands up with Betty Shelby in Tulsa, whether
I would say that there's a general issue though with cops treating people who are mentally handicapped in a negative way. Because even there was like one autistic guy who was on the floor and they still shot him. He didn't die. He was a white guy. And then there was this other kid who There's like some 14 or 13-year-old kid that I think they shot and they put in the hospital, some white kid, because he was like having like an autism attack in like an episode.
That's why I like intersectionality, because it shows us how, regardless of a person's race, being seen as being disabled, whether it's physical or cognitive, always forces some type of obstacles and, you know what I'm saying, barriers, you feel me, disparities one has to face. And we see that once we start to add more identities onto a disabled person, whether you're a racial minority or you're a gender minority, because you know there are black, trans, disabled people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
And thinking about how they are, you know what I'm saying? Not a lot.
It's so fun. I don't mean to laugh because like you know, some of my content's joking too. So when people say like trans disabled, it's a little funny to me because my perspective is that trans like gender dysphoria is a mental disorder, and some like
all trans people don't experience.
No, but I know. No, well, no, they don't. That's a whole other conversation for like a whole other day. I had a big conversation with like Desmond Fabrini about that. You know, because I come from the perspective that I feel like you need to have gender dysphoria to be trans, and I feel it's diminishing for people who don't have gender dysphoria to claim that they're trans, because I think that there is a level of trans trending. Just as when I was growing up, everybody was bisexual. Now there's transgenders. Like, I hate it when people are fully identifiable, like let's say women, like they identify as women, and then they just say that they're men. It's like, why? You know, I feel like it's diminishing to call them trans.
To me, it's the mess up static notion of gender and how we have these visual ways with aesthetics to be able to try to map on a gender onto somebody. I think that gender is to me is an inherent social construct. I feel like once I learned about how a lot of different Native American populations had like 6 genders, 4 genders, 5 genders. Shit, some Native American populations wasn't gendering their kid until they was 4 or 5 years old. It literally showed me that gender is
what I would say. I learned more about what I would say.
Yeah, my bad.
No, it's okay. I think it's because your mic cuts out a little bit, so I think you're done talking. No, it's okay. It's not you. I was gonna say, you know what's interesting, because just the social construct argument in general, because people, I'm not saying you're doing it, but sometimes people just say it's a social construct and they use it as a justifier to like whatever they say goes. And like my opinion is like social constructs are things we have a conversation about socially. Like that's why we get to talk about racism and what it means and what it is.
I agree with that. That's literally what a social construct is.
Yeah, it's like a conversation.
Society based off of norms and practices agree on a set standard of norms and practices, and those are known as social constructs.
Yeah, right.
I.e., heteronormativity is a social construct, and how we normalize what it means to be heterosexual. That is a social construct.
Yeah, it is. It's so interesting you bring it up, because like I'm attracted to some men. Like I'm attracted to femininity, and people are like, oh, are you bisexual? I'm like, no, I don't really like labels like that. I'm just like, I'm kind of gay. Like I don't really like the complicated labels that we kind of washed through. And it's like, for what? You know?
Because power is the ability to define the phenomenon and make it act in a desired manner. And Papa Gut, you recognize you don't want nobody defining your sexual phenomenon in a way that can be stigmatized or a way that can be used.
Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe that's like my subtextual, like I don't want to be roped into something.
I'm psychoanalysis. I'm
maybe.
giving you psychoanalysis right now. My psychoanalysis of Papa Gut is when it comes to these labels, you are not smart enough to recognize how they're a power, how it's always already power.
Right. Or I just honestly it's exhausting to keep up with all these fucking labels. Like that's really where I just don't care. It's just I put very little value into my identities. I think that's the thing that I do. Very little value into identities, and I don't particularly care for people who like weaponize their identity. And you see a lot of people in general on TikTok doing that shit, where it's just always something where they weaponize it.
Identity politics, man. And I think that right now, I think right now, a lot of the leftist liberals are seeing how they set up this identity politics shit and making it where now conservatives exploiting this shit.
Maybe. What do you mean by that? What do you mean conservatives exploiting
that? When it comes to me, for instance, the Attorney General of Kentucky with the Breonna Taylor case.
Yeah. Oh, that case is a fucking shit show.
Conservatives are literally using Cameron being black as a justification of saying this able to take away and not being racist.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Do you think that was a white? Do you think that it
does not matter who the conductor is? If the train is white supremacy, it don't matter who the conductor is. The results are still going to be white supremacy.
But if all black people were on the train of white supremacy, then white supremacy would cease to exist. So maybe
hell no. Hell no. Go to the island of Dominican Republic in Haiti and see that even when the French left, they still prescribed anti-blackness into the idea of demonization of dark skin.
I think we just need to kind of all mix together until we're all gray, and then there's nothing left. Yeah, you don't think so? You don't think that we should all have like gray babies?
to me, Dominican Republic and Haiti shows that even when you had the mixture of races, that colorism as well as whiteness was still permeate. It was still permeate.
Do you think that the Breonna Taylor situation was like actually racially motivated? Like, do you think that there's a racial factor there?
Yeah, I think that.
And how heavy would you think that factor?
Things being racial, I'm never thinking about the motivation. 9 times out of 10, I'm thinking about the pattern or the trend of the impact. That's what Tyler Buntman was trying to get me to think about. Like, what was the motivation? It's like, to me, I think about the idea, because going back to the libido economy, I can have a complete disregard for what you got going on and it not be my motivation to fuck you over or to kill you. And I think that a lot of times officers go in with complete disregard for individual.
So you're talking about like implicit bias. You're talking about like you're talking about.
I think it was racially motivated. I'm sorry. I
don't think it was racially motivated.
I seen the first minute of her boyfriend being on the ground with his hands over.
I know what you're talking about, and they were screaming at him, and they didn't listen to him at all.
Oh, come on now, you got the drugs. To me, there was.
Did they say that? I never heard them say that.
Oh, definitely. You hear the police officer saying, "What's the boyfriend name?"
Kenneth Walker.
Mr. Walker. Stop it, Mr. Walker. He's literally patronizing this man as he's mourning the death of his girlfriend.
So you're talking about like an implicit bias type of a thing, right?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. To me, a lot of people are racially illiterate in understanding how white supremacy operates. Well, you think that you have to have a burning cross or a white hood to engage in white supremacy, and I think that there are levels to it. Do
you think that that's? And I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to kind of go into the tangent for a second. So, do you think that's necessarily white supremacy? Because when I interpret it, and maybe I'm giving it too much of the benefit of the doubt. Maybe part of that's because I'm white and I don't have anything invested in it. But when I look at that situation, I look at it very simply, like I do many things. And when you talk about police officers, when it comes to dealing with particular people, the people who give police officers the most problems are black people. And we both know it's systemic racism, denying opportunity and corralling black people into particular areas and basically not affording them any opportunity to generate any type of wealth. But there's still, and then out of that necessity to attain wealth, they commit more crimes. But when I look at it as a very simple and a very simplistic perspective, I say people are less racist and they're more victims of being people, because anybody who works any job is going to hate some particular thing about that job. And then when it comes to police officers, they're going to start becoming racist based on the fact that it's simply the people that are causing the most problems are black. Does that make sense?
To me, I think that it makes sense for you to come with that narrative. However, I would disagree with that narrative.
Because that when I come at that narrative, I come at that narrative with like the in a way where it's like, okay, so my biggest
more white people being abrasive or uncivil or just literally flat out,
but do you think that poor white people are as abrasive? Because there's not community distrust, I would say, when it comes to poor white people. Like that's just a whole other.
Hey, I was born and raised around rednecks, man. As a matter of fact, it's a great SNL skit.
Well,
I think it's Tom Hanks acting as Tom Hanks acting as a MAGA supporter, and you got Kenan Thompson, and you see that there's a lot of systemic perceptions that poor white people and poor black people share when it comes to trusting the police, when it comes to trusting the government, like literally.
It's interesting you said that because I had a conversation with a TikToker who was like a poor white guy, and like he pretty much said what you were saying. Yeah, so I guess that is a good point.
For a fact, I know that. Listen, I was born and raised in Bryan College Station, and I literally stayed in a trailer park for goddamn 5 years of my life. In this trailer park, it was white people, Mexican people, black people. We all had the same distrust for police. We recognized that from a certain standpoint, that police seen all of us poor people as being criminal. But even as us as a kids, my Mexican friends and my white friends in the trailer park, they recognized that when we went through a store, we actually used to use stereotyping to our advantage, right? We all go into a store, we all poor. We know that the the person in the store gonna look at me and focusing on my white friend, my Mexican friend. We were seeing white friend gonna come in the store and steal, but we know that the store clerk is on the Iranian dude that's also a person of color gonna focus more on my black ass and more on the brown person than my white friend. So he gonna go and steal, but he gonna go home and break bread. We're gonna split 3 ways. So we see how even from that instance with poverty, that the skin color still permeates how we see people.
Right. So we're basically, I guess this is some level of intersectionality when we talk about race and class, right? Very interesting. I'm very new to the context of critical race theory and intersectionality. Very interesting. Very interesting stuff.
Shit, bro. That's how I know. A lot of what I know came from critical race theory.
Yeah,
A lot of what I know.
It's so interesting because like I'm just introducing myself into it, and like I look at it and it seems fine, and then a lot of people complain about it because they say it's anti-white. I think in that situation it seems to be more white fragility than it is actually anti-white, because I can embrace some of these ideas.
Yeah.
There's ways where I can see it being weaponized to be anti-white, but I haven't seen it demonstrated as of yet. Even when Trump decided to like cast away critical race theory out of like whatever operations he was using, the examples were like just they were so benign. It's like, yeah, they would have us in a room and say, you know, as a white person, like there's many ways which you contribute to systemic racism, and it's like, yeah, sure, but like that was like it's like, you know, because we walk a fine line between white fragility and actual perpetuation of hatred. You know, and I don't think critical race theory is a perpetuation of hatred. It's just a very uncomfortable theory for white people.
I think that once I learned that Derek Bell, one of Barack Obama's mentors from Harvard, is one of the pioneers of critical race theory, it made sense to me about why now critical race theory is something that's being attacked. I think that it's a big conservative contradiction. If you can acknowledge things like, you know, the First Step Act that acknowledges federal disparities and incarceration, if you can acknowledge the Platinum Plus plan that's able to try to give black folks $5 billion in loan money, it's like, how can you acknowledge all those things and then turn around and say that critical race theory is bad?
Well, you know what?
Diversity and inclusion. It's like, or say that systemic racism doesn't exist.
You know what gets me even more than that is that like people are shitting on Joe Biden for his crime bill, like 1993, and then but those are the same people who are like systemic racism doesn't exist, and it's like, well, that is systemic racism. So it's like you're being a little tricky here, you know.
Or to me, it's like if you criticize the crime bill for being bad, and then you believe when Donald Trump says law and order. You be like, yeah, it's like you do recognize that same hubris of thinking of law and order is what structures the crime bill.
Literally, you know what? To counter that point, I want to say something because I think that there's an argument there, and I don't think that conservatives are rallying around it, which doesn't like aid their argument. But we talked like law and order. I think overall is like a good thing. But I would say that you mentioned before that like Antifa seems to be riling up these like BLM protests, and so like it's one of those situations where you have these young dumb liberal kids who are generating these like acts of violence basically, and then like they're kind of blaming it on BLM. Like scapegoating it, and so now like, and I don't think Trump's great, but I think that like there's an argument to be made that if without Antifa, maybe this wouldn't be so bad.
I think one can make that argument.
Yeah, maybe it's it's just something for context. I'm not going to hold to it, but
But to me knowing the monstrosity of blackness and black people, if I step onto an elevator and I got my hair done and I got on a nice fine suit that costs a couple $1,000. There's still a high level that if I step on an elevator with a white woman, she still might clutch her purse.
Sure.
You feel me? To me, what I'm getting at in terms of, to me, what I'm getting at is that there is still a level of social death or deviancy that's inscribed onto black people, even if crazy white folks ain't doing shit around us.
I get what you're
saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
When Terrence Crutcher had his hands up, and you know what I'm saying, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, about 2 years ago, and Betty Shelby shot him in the back because she said she was fearing for her life. The law justified her fear by saying that she didn't do no wrong.
Right? Yeah. Well, you shot in the back. You really have no argument.
Yeah. So to me, I'm just thinking about how I think, don't get me wrong, I think you should make a good argument though, because to me it's undeniable when you see all the footage of white Antifa people writing "fuck the pigs," BLM on buildings.
Yeah. It's one of those things. Yeah, it's one of the. It's like a factor.
It's definitely.
Yeah, I think it's like a. I have a question. Like I know that I'm just running. If you have to go, you have to go. But I did a question. Like, so do you notice? I don't know. This is a weird question. Do you have like white friends, or do you have what people you associate that are white? Are they like Are they very like liberal, or are they more like moderate or even conservative?
Most of my white friends are liberal. My white friends I grew up with that I'm still cool with, or my white friends that I made friends before I got into debate, they conservative, but they moderate.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, because I've noticed like kind of a trend. This might be anecdotal, but I see like a trend where like very leftist people don't seem to like very leftist white people really don't seem to engage with black people too much, like on a friend level.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's true. And this is what
not that conservatives do. Not that conservatives do.
I think conservatives do. Conservatives go make friends with people like Tyler Bluntman and Topher Town Music.
You really don't like them that much.
Damn, it's like to me, it's literally if you can create the good Negro, bad Negro paradigm, and you don't recognize how all black people at some point it's going to be seen as either a good Negro or a bad Negro, you are parasitic to black people. And I think that Topher Town Music and Tyler Bluntman specifically buy into notions of the good Negro versus the bad Negro, and I can spend days, times, hours waxing poetically about how the things they engage in is not only parasitic to black people, but they literally reify all of the predispositions of white people and being anti-black and being white supremacist sympathizers. It's like literally find me a black person that can tell me the way I think about black people is not racist.
Because I would counter that. Because like I don't really know Topher Town Music too much, but I know Tyler Bluntman, and I disagree with him on a lot of stuff. I think that some of his perspectives are ignorant, and obviously one of those is like his denial of systemic racism. But where I also come from is like it seems like there's a higher standard for him to be in agreement of systemic racism than like a white person, and that to me seems rather unfair. Like it seems like a white person who disagrees with systemic racism is like whatever, but then like if a black person does based on their upbringing, because everything's about upbringing, because it seems like he grew up in a place where he simply just didn't experience racism. And
obviously,
and like so what I would say is I don't think that should make him seem additionally worse, because now we're saying you know what I'm saying.
That literally makes him a selfish piece of shit. That makes it where
but isn't everybody selfish though? Like my question would be like everybody's selfish though, so like why give him more shit for being black? You know what I'm saying?
I disagree with that. I think that most black people do not experience police brutality, but can recognize that because we are black, we are more likely to experience police brutality. Me acknowledging that most black people do not experience police brutality does not justify black people being able to deny it exists.
So what you're saying is that can I try to
I've never been raped before. It would be unethical for me to say, because as my personal experience, I've never been raped, that I'm going to deny how rape culture is.
Sure. No, I get that. Well, a lot of people would. I don't deny that its existence. But what it sounds like you're saying is basically because he's black, like he should be more on board with black issues.
Yeah, you can say it like that.
Yeah. I don't know. But I would bring that around. That seems like, to me, it seems like too much of an embracing of race. Then again, I have less invested in this than you do, obviously.
I feel like it's not embracing a race. I feel like if I can acknowledge that there are barriers around me, this doesn't mean that I'm going to sit in my house and cry about the barriers. This means I'm going to have a better understanding of how to navigate around those barriers. I think that from this, even from a white perspective, inside groupthink and outside groupthink is real. Think about the American Revolution and what the colonists did. How does America see colonists that sided with King George and the Redcoats?
Bad guys.
You know about Benedict Arnold? You know about Benedict Arnold, don't you?
Sure, enough. Nothing too specific.
But if you don't know about Benedict Arnold, we understand that his name is made synonymous with being a traitor.
Yeah, right. No, I understand. Like we're talking about perspective.
Communities are situated based off of in group and out group. All communities are based off of who you can't exclude and who you can't include.
All I'm saying,
and you are able to deviate outside their reality, it's like, damn, my bro.
All I'm saying is I think that it seems a little, because, I think we can acknowledge that he clearly didn't grow up in a way that, like, I wouldn't even say it, he didn't grow up in a way where he experienced it. And so it seems like I don't think that he should be getting as much shit because he doesn't identify with his blackness in the way that you do. And like, it seems like there's, okay, let me rephrase. Like, so do you think that like he's just as, and I like Tyler, but do you think that he's just as ignorant as a white person with the same beliefs, or do you think that the fact that he's black makes him more ignorant?
The fact that he's black makes him more ignorant and more dangerous.
Yeah, right, and that's what I'm talking about. I think that it's a little. I just find it a little. It just seems like you're giving him more shit because he's black. Yeah.
Tyler, definitely, because he's like, I'm be flat out with you. In group, out group beef is always tied to how you identify with the group. Tyler Bluntman used his blackness to appeal to Republicans. Does he? Right. Definitely.
Because I would say, because I'm not super educated. Hold on. I'm asking a question. I'm not going to assert anything. Well, rather, I'm not going to hold to it harshly because I don't consume his content. when you say that he weaponizes his blackness to like appeal to conservatives, does he? And like, I haven't seen it, right? And this is why I'm asking you: does he actively say I'm black, so these things don't exist, or does he simply take a perspective? I would have to say that.
He's actively made these statements that I am black, and you see those black people over there saying that. I disagree with them, and me being black.
Does he actually say that?
Because I'm black.
Because if he says that, then he's inviting. Yeah, if he says that, he's inviting himself to be part of like that conversation. Okay, all right. I mean, like I can't. I mean, I'll look for it.
His blackness as a toy to be able to appeal to white Republican kids to play with his little black.
If you can substantiate that claim. If you could substantiate the claim that he legitimately weaponizes blackness, then like, yeah, whatever social outcast or whatever social backlash he gets, he invited himself into the space of being black. But if a black person was simply said, I don't think systemic racism exists, and they didn't use their blackness as a tool, I don't think it's fair to hold them to a higher standard than white people.
I think that we can say, like, to me, you want to have a friendly debate about if unicorns exist or not, or if Bigfoot exists or not.
What are you talking about?
That debate, bro.
What are you talking about, though?
I'm making a point. I'm making a point, though.
Right.
If me and you was trying to make an argument about whether systemic racism exists or doesn't exist, that's not an inconsequential argument to make. You feel me?
Okay, now I understand what you're saying. Because when you
are able to deny that racism exists, you're able to deny how people are impacted by it.
Sure, yeah.
Unethical.
My only argument, is not that it's not ignorant. My argument is that I don't think it's fair for him to be like his blackness to be weaponized against him. But if you're saying he's already engaging in his blackness as a weapon to, I understand.
I would make it. Saying that in 2020, 95% of black Republicans literally like to pontificate their blackness and appealing to white people and saying, hey, white people, I know those black people over there call you racist for saying this, but I'm black and I don't think that's racist. That is literally what I call a conservative clout chaser. All these are Candace Owens.
You don't think that they actually believe that? You don't think they actually believe? And Candace Owens' defense, I don't like Candace Owens really at all. I'm just gonna, but like
Tyler Blunt is literally a Candace Owens son.
But Candace Owens grew up in like a fucking white area, you know. So that's why she doesn't get it.
Tyler Blunt man wouldn't exist. Candace Owens literally gave birth to Topher Town Music, King Face, may he rest in peace.
You think so?
Goddamn, name them, all of them. Like she literally gave birth to them.
Interesting. I don't particularly care. What's very interesting is that
all these black Republicans use their blackness and use their race to be able to say, I'm not like them over there.
Do you think that there can be functioning black conservatives?
Definitely. I grew up. I'm born and raised in Bryan, College Station, Texas, man. A lot of my family, for lack of better terms, is black conservatives.
Right.
But they would never say that system racism wouldn't exist. They would never say no shit like that.
Sure. Yeah. Because I grew up in an area of like very moderate to conservative, mostly moderate to conservative, some liberals.
I lived in Oklahoma. I was born and raised in Texas.
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody. You don't see anybody saying, "Oh, systemic racism doesn't exist out here." From in my friend group, even though there's I would say that a lot of conservatives actually acknowledge it.
They voted for Donald Trump. They believe systemic racism exists. The reason why they voted for Donald Trump, they believe that he was going to be he was a non-politician sticking it to the politicians.
Do you think are they still voting for Trump?
This year, they not.
No. Do you think that? And this is a serious question because, like, I've seen, like, and I hate to give, like, I'm voting like Biden, but do you think that Trump is actually like perpetuating racism? And like that's my question because it seems like he's trying to reverse systemic racism, even if he doesn't care. Like,
I think that he is mastering racial gaslighting and being able to tone police black people in one end, in one notion, and then
how would you say that he's tone policing black people?
Anything he say about Black Lives Matter, he's always engaging in dog whistles to white supremacists and be able to tone police black people. Anything he's ever said about NFL players since he's been in presidency has only been racial tone policing, where he's being the white daddy and telling them ignorant sons of bitches to be grateful.
I get what you're saying with that. Yeah, he's like telling them not to kneel.
Say that Muslims is dirty, Africans is shit countries. You know what I'm saying? He say that we have to.
I forgot he said that. Yeah.
Like we have to get us a new judge because this judge is Mexican and she's trying to make a decision on some Mexicans and she's gonna be unfair.
Did she say it? Did he say that?
Look it up.
Look it up. I'll look it up. If you could send that to me, I'd like to see that because I don't remember saying that.
You know what I'm saying? Google it right now. The judge was
all right, what am I Googling? Trump Mexican judge. Is that what I would look up?
I'm saying Trump Mexican judge removal. That's what I'm putting in mind.
What's the judge's name? Do you know?
Judge Correll. That's the judge. Judge Gonzalez Correll, attacked by Donald Trump. Came right up.
Yeah. That's my first thing. Yeah, on Time Magazine. So let's see.
Come right up. Judge Gonzalez attacked by Donald Trump for being Mexican and being biased towards Mexicans. That's racist.
Interesting. I'm just reading through really quick.
Look at because you know how Republicans say, "Oh man, the media is sensationalizing it." He didn't really say that. Look at what he said, specifically what he said. Now, out of context, he literally said, "Her being Mexican mean we cannot trust her." This is a judge that sits in the United States of America on federal level.
Very interesting. And I find it ironic because, like, I would say that the general conservative talking point is to be colorblind, and yet the second that narrative doesn't work for you,
doesn't work.
The second that it doesn't work for you anymore, then it's all because now it's like, oh, we're now colorblind, but this person's Mexican, so we need to recuse them from the case.
Can't say that at all. And until we keep on going, you know that when the Central Park Five was in the late 1980s. Donald Trump called for them to be, killed. Called for them to get the death penalty.
Right, yeah.
When they came out to be innocent, Donald Trump doubled down on that. See, this the insidious nature of racism.
Do you hold on? Racism, I have a quick question though. Do you think that if Kevin from Home Alone was black, that Donald Trump would have helped him?
I think that he could have helped him. I think that when it comes to racism, I think he could have helped him. I think that
I was just fucking around.
There are always individual black people, but I think you asked me a real question though. I think it adds to me racial literacy, being able to read and write racial understandings. I think about it like this: the slave master had black friends. You know what I'm saying? That didn't change that he was holding people on the plantation for being black.
So if I wanted to boil this down, I like to simplify it. It seems like what you're saying is that when it comes to like the easier things, Trump's like, oh, I'm for black people. When it comes to like the harder fights, Trump is like all race baity bullshit.
To me, he all race baiter shit, and he's able to appeal to the very few black conservatives he know he can get with talking about money. Conservatism and capitalism go hand in hand to me. You feel me? I'm gonna say it again. Conservatism. What do you
mean by that though? What do you mean that they go hand in hand? I'm a little confused with that.
To me, conservatism is about conserving old values and old traditions. To me, capitalism at the core is a tradition that conservatives want to be able to preserve. That's the reason why they worried about. Notice this: from McCarthyism all the way to now, but conservatives don't like your ass. What they call you? A socialist.
Right. Well, that would be my question. Is so where do you think we need? This is what we should talk about next time, I guess. Because I was going to where do you think we need to trend toward? Because if you don't, do you believe in like what the fuck, capitalism, or do you not believe that capitalism is a good?
No, I think capitalism is the most dehumanizing system in the world. I think that when I think about a lot of the worst evils in the world, I think they can be attributed to capitalism, and I'll be willing to bet this year's salary, next year's salary, and everything I'm making with gigs, I'm debating anybody on that. Capitalism is the literal most responsible for the harshest, craziest violence in the world.
Sure, but so where would you fall? Because I would argue that pure capitalism is toxic in the way you're saying.
I ain't even gonna play them adjective games.
No,
I ain't gonna play them. I don't
because if adjective. What would be your because there's a difference between capitalism without any restrictions and then like heavily restricted capitalism with like a lot of social blankets around it, right? So what would your solution be though? Like what would you?
To me, I would advocate for people being able to come up with new economic systems and new political systems that can take into account the realities that we live in. I think that it does a disservice for us to try to go research the old systems of the 15.
Well, say so. Wait. No. The only reason I bring it up, so it seems like you don't really care what it's called as long as it works well.
I don't give a fuck what you want to call it. As a matter of fact, I would refrain from calling it anything or something we didn't call it in the past.
Yeah, right. Because all I would say is that like because I'm a capitalist by nature, but like I have a capitalist with the idea of creating a ground floor that provides opportunity. I think that I want to get into it, but we should save this for next time because it really wraps it. Like I want to tell, but it wraps into like our solutions for systemic racism. So I don't want to get too much into it.
To me, capitalism is literally a tool of white supremacy, bro. Like literally, white Europeans brought capitalism into the world to structure sustain the structure of the world.
But it doesn't mean we can't restructure that tool, you know.
I think that we should throw out the baby with the bathwater and come up with a whole new bathwater.
I don't believe in that. I believe in like progressive change. Because I'm not fucking the baby. I don't know what you're talking about. That's
whole new. Hey, shout out to my LGBTQ people. Fuck futurism.
Fuck the baby.
I got kids too.
Jesus Christ.
What, man,
oh my God.
Throw the baby out with the bathwater. We need a whole new bathroom. We need a whole new house.
See, the reason I can't support that idea is because once we throw the baby out with the bathwater, then like we lose all our power. Once you completely destroy, dismantle, and restructure. No. I'm not even talking about from a racial perspective. Like, because I would ask you. Because
capitalism is all wrapped up in that. To me, you cannot divorce capitalism from race.
I think you can. But when I said, because I'm not going to get into, again, we're going to get into it next time. It's going to be a great conversation. But when I said that we lose our power, I'm talking about losing American power to like Chinese power. It's like it's a Chinese and like and at the end,
American power. How are indigenous people of America impacted by that?
Well, what I would say is, how do you think that they'd be impacted by China? Because China treats people of color much worse. Like, you see what they're doing to like people in the concentration camps.
White people that's listening to this, I know y'all don't like this, but shit, my black ass, I would be willing to see if the Chinese can be a little bit more better with black people than white people.
I think you're being a little too optimistic. Listen. I honestly, I think that. I listen, man. I think that that's a dangerous gamble, because like you're seeing what China's doing to like Muslim people in concentration camps right now. That they're putting.
Have you seen what America does to Muslims and black people?
It's I would say that on a scale, it's better than a concentration camp. Do you think? Listen. All I'm saying is that they're putting them in concentration camps. So that's so they can be like culturally reappropriated and then like accepted into
world.
I'm just saying, man.
The whole world models itself out after the Western world, and we know that American hegemony is big.
I would say that
Chinese ain't doing nothing bad to Muslims that American haven't done worse to Africans and indigenous people of America.
Maybe. No, hold on. You're right. I can agree with you. But that's of the America more in the past. I would say that Muslim people in the United States are being treated better than Muslim people in China right now. Could you at least agree on that? There's no way you could disagree.
I agree with that.
So then I would say that our civilization is objectively more accepting than the Chinese civilization.
I think that when it comes to being accepted on it, I think that it's simply maybe on the surface level, but I think that there are still more benign, insidious ways in which America demonizes Islam people and uses Islamophobia to justify legislation, justify wars, justify, you know what I'm saying, dissemination of information. I think there are more insidious ways.
But I'm not saying that we're innocent. What I'm saying is that we're better than that guy. Western society's is what?
America is more insidious when it comes to how it does people wrong.
Well, okay. When you say that, it borders like a conspiracy theory, because and the reason I say that is because like when we surface level it, a Muslim person in America lives better than a Muslim person in China, and then it's like America's more insidious. It kind of suggests this conspiracy theory that I simply can't disprove, because I don't think that you have a foundation of logic on it.
I can disprove it. I can use the gray. I can use this gray frame and using gender.
Mm-hmm.
America.
No, but we're talking specifically about Muslim people and the way that they live. And
I'm about to give you an example with using a Muslim country and how we are able out west, how we're able to demonize Muslim countries for not caring about particular people because they are Muslim.
Yeah.
In America, we were able to use how Saudi Arabia treats its women as a reason to go in, intervene and or, you know what I'm saying, go over there. And what's the word I'm looking here for? Take over. You feel me? I'll take over. Intervene. You feel me? I'm looking for a military word here. I can't get a word. Slip my mind. But literally, America was able to use the idea of treating women better as a way to invade. That's what I'm looking for. Invade. Okay. Now we know the reason I'm calling it insidious is because America is the last people in the world that should be telling other countries how it treats its women.
Now I think if that's your argument, I don't think you win that one, man. As bad. Listen. There is a poor power dynamic in America of man to woman, but to suggest that we don't have a better like power dynamic than other countries, like other Middle Eastern countries, I think is ignorant, because Middle Eastern countries don't give a shit about women or LGBT people.
America doesn't either.
No, but we care substantially more. We care substantially more. Huh?
I think
don't think
that when you're able to make that
What?
claim, it justifies things like, American intervention and American, invading of communist countries. But we know that in the 1960s that John F. Kennedy was able to say, we have to stop the red spreading because look at how those communists are treating their people. That idea literally was allowed for America to turn the blind eye for how it was treating its own indigenous and enslaved African population.
Okay, I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying
for us to be able to say
I'm okay.
You gotta log in your
what you're basically saying is like you're contesting a common conservative talking point, which I also contest. And as you see conservatives constantly say, well, we don't have this here because this group of person is treated better here than they are over there, so we don't need to make any more social change.
According to who?
No, that's the conservative talking point. It's like, oh, we don't need to work on women's rights because look at how bad it is over there. That's what but that's a common conservative talking point, right? You agree with that? And then we both agree it's bullshit. But as disingenuous. Hold on. No. You can't dismiss my argument on some kind of like an anecdotal like thing, or like some kind of a fucking phrasing. It's an undeniable
English teacher.
I know. Okay, so right. No, it's called. Listen, stop redirecting. Okay, I already know your game. I've been talking to you for 2.5 hours. 3 hours. Okay, so what I'm saying is that in America, women are not treated equally to men, right? Let's just make it simple, right? What Americans say or some conservatives say in order to not push for more equality between men and women is they say it's worse over in the Middle Eastern countries, right? But it still is worse in Middle Eastern countries. They're just using it as an excuse to not make social change. It's still worse in those Middle Eastern countries. And my argument is I think that you're being very polarizing in your perspective, where like you're not seeing the middle ground. You're just seeing like you're completely denying the whole entire point because of like the way that they're using it.
The middle ground would be able to say that in some instances women have it worse in America, and in other instances women have it worse in Saudi Arabia.
I would say if there are instances where women have it worse in America, they haven't been proven, and they're substantially worse in Saudi Arabia.
So you're being polarizing. You're being polarizing.
No, I'm not
saying that. In fact, women in America have it better than women in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, overall.
So I'm being middle ground.
I don't think that's middle ground. I don't think that's middle ground. I think that you're trying to deny my argument at any cost. I think that like you can't like there's because you're refusing to acknowledge that like in Western society, women have it better than in Middle Eastern countries.
I think that's a common Western fallacy.
Can you?
But
roles
or sexual roles in the Western world is better.
So then, are you saying that it's not that bad in Middle Eastern countries? Because basically men have the full power in those countries.
Don't get into the reduction. I'm saying that.
No, I'm not. I'm asking.
Women in Saudi Arabia have it better than America.
Are you saying overall? Do you think that it's equal then? Like in Saudi Arabia, women are treated equally than women in America?
No, I think that for the most part, equality is a Western.
No. Hold on. Okay, I'm just trying to get to a very, very simple point. All right, so we're saying that there are situations where apparently people in Saudi Arabia or in Middle Eastern countries, women have it better than women in Western countries, right? That's what you said. So you're saying in some instances, women in Eastern countries are treated better than women in Western countries, right? Which means that some women in Western countries are treated better than women in Eastern countries in circumstances, right? So everything combined, do you think that they're treated equally?
No.
So what would you rather be a woman in America or a woman in the Middle East?
I would rather be anybody out west because the privileges that are accompanied with being a Western.
Yeah,
body.
So then you're saying that women in the West are treated better than women in the East.
I'm not saying that. That's what you want me to say.
No, it's not. You're trying to overcomplicate the argument, man. I know that I don't. But it's not. But it's really. But like, it's not complicated. But it's
be able to say that. Listen, if you want to complain about the Western world, at least you're not out east. You better be grateful. You better be.
No. You're assigning a value to my argument that I'm not making. No. You're assigning a value to my argument. You're what?
The West is not best.
Is what?
The West is not best. The West is not best.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so I want to just
argument that says the West is best.
let me because you're assigning a value to my words that doesn't exist. I think that you're very polarized in your perspective on this. I'm not saying that because women have it better in the West that we shouldn't make social progress. I'm simply saying that it exists. You what? No.
What is this?
That you are better off as a woman in the West than in the East. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying we shouldn't push for social change. What?
In some instances.
No, but you acknowledge that you'd rather be a Western woman than an Eastern woman. So even you agree with me. You just don't want to agree with me. You're just refusing to agree with me on a point.
You about privileges, bro. I think that you gloss over how privileges operate and how home and the other.
I'm not. I'm not doing that. But I'm not doing that.
You can hold me to saying one is better than the other, and I'm telling you in some instances
because
you're saying that's not good enough.
No. Because what I'm saying is one is better than the other, but the one still needs to continue and move forward and make more progress. I'm not using a comparative argument to diminish feminism. I'm simply saying that it is better in America. I think that if you can't acknowledge that LGBT people and women have it better,
I don't have to make those analysis to be able to in order for me to understand how in some instances women are treated better in Saudi Arabia than compared to America. I'll give you an example. The example of how in the Western world people have a fucked up way of viewing burqas, and they view burqas as a mere.
But that has nothing to do with women overall. And the entire no, it doesn't. And the whole idea of a burqa is that you have to hide yourself to make sure you maintain purity.
That's my what you just said is my example right there.
So you're saying you're saying that I'm wrong.
West to view themselves as being more free than women out east because they don't have to cover themselves.
Yeah. Because women don't have to cover themselves, but they still can. That's a freedom that is afforded to a Western woman. That's it. You just proved me wrong. You can't be that frustrated when your logic just crumbled. What are you talking about?
There are literal women that don't have to, that choose to because they see it as being liberating.
That's good though. But the point is that no. The point, no, you already proved my point. The point
that do not have to wear burqas, but they choose to wear them because it is liberating.
Yes, that's my point. You just proved my point. What it's saying is that no. Listen, because okay. Do women
choose to?
Do women in the East, do women in those civilizations have to wear burqas?
No, believe it or not, you should think globally and act locally. Google right in front of you right now. There are countries in Middle East that do not force women to wear burqas, but they wear them voluntarily because they see it as being liberating. They don't want you to sexualize them. They want you to focus on what they're saying and how they think. We have a Western understanding of how gender operates, and we think that because a body is being more exposed, this means the body is more free.
So there are countries. Okay, listen. There are countries in the Middle East that do and don't force you to wear a burqa.
My point exactly.
So
you try to say that they are forced to.
Well, no. So what your argument is that basically that there is an American ignorance on Eastern culture.
Literally, what I'm arguing.
Yes, sure.
The American ignorance allows for people to make claims and say that. The Western world is better than the Eastern world. That comes out of American ignorance, where you literally ignore modes of reality for other people because it's not in your knowledge. So you literally use your ignorance to make claims about other countries and other continents you know nothing about.
So right.
Women are better here than men. It's like, how can you make that claim? Are you a woman?
What I would say is that generally, what I would say overall, you have a good argument when it comes to the ignorance of Western people when it comes to Eastern countries, but even you yourself acknowledge that you'd rather be a woman in the Western world. So that would suggest to me that women are treated better.
I'm implicating myself.
So if you exist in that same if you exist in that same ignorance, then can you do more to quantify that women in the East are treated better overall or even equally?
Does that have to do what?
So if you're saying that you're ignorant, then how can you propose can you show me more information that suggests that our complete perspective of people in the Middle East is wrong? That because can you show me a ton of information and resources?
Yeah. Example.
I want a general example.
Even a general example. You got Google in front of you. You've been Googling everything else out. You've been fact checking everything else out and said you can keep on fact checking.
Just show me the information.
I know information is good. Fact checking information is good. I'm saying it's good. In America, we have yet to have a woman president. Those Muslim countries over in the Middle East, they've had women leaders. To me, this proves that you cannot make a totalizing statement and say that women out west are treated than women better out east. We see that out east, they've had women leadership. They've had women presidents. They've had women emperors. America has not had one.
Can you show me one of the countries that has an a female president though, really quick?
Yeah.
Because first and foremost, there's like 50 countries out there. But you keep saying that they have women leaders out there, but then we don't. But we have a ton of female leaders in America. Yes, what do you like? Kamala Harris isn't a female leader?
I'm making a distinction right here. I'm saying that they have leaders that has ruled their country, that literally the president is the head of their country. America has never had a woman that's been head of the country. We didn't have some women that was able to hold that position or that position.
Okay, so then there's countries with a female prime minister in like Pakistan, Bangladesh. There's been a female leader, Turkey. But then if you're hold on, if you're gonna generalize Eastern countries, like we have, like Germany has a female leader now.
I'm not generalizing. I'm saying that I'm making a criticism against generalization.
No, but you're
going back to my idea.
But we do have Western countries with female leadership.
I'm saying that in some instances, women out west are treated better than women out east. In other instances, vice versa. I think that this example right here of Pakistan and Germany shows you that we cannot have a totalizing claim when it comes to thinking about who has the best. In some instances, yeah. In other instances, now context matters. We're acknowledging that in your understanding of the Eastern worlds, Pakistan would definitely fall under American ignorance and being Muslim and treating women bad. Well, we see that Pakistan is able to respect women enough to let them rule that country. America has not done that.
Well, but again, right. But Pakistan versus America isn't East versus West. That's just one instance of each, right? Because there are Western countries with female presidents. So what you're saying is effectively equating. You're showing a similarity of equality where you're saying like, oh, it's not as bad over in the East that I think, which is fair. That's fair. But you can't combine the argument by saying. But you can't combine the argument and say that the Western world has never had a female president, because the Western world has.
When I say the Western world, I'm talking about the Americas, America, South America.
No, you can't do that. That's not Western civilization, though. Like you have to be like the United Kingdom, like Europe. You have to. Those are Western civilizations. But
I'm with you from now on. When I'm saying this,
I'm not. I'm simply going to reject that because that's not what Western civilization is. That's not what Western culture is, and you know that.
I think that when it comes to me, I think that American culture is hegemonic to Western understanding. To me,
but Western cultures, but like Scandinavian countries, those are like Westernized countries. Like those have Western ideals. That's what we're talking about when we talk about
Westernized. Western, you see that verb? That Western.
Yes, but that's what we're talking about. But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about Western culture. We're not talking about literally the West. So we're talking about Western culture. So like the European countries are included in that. Scandinavian countries are included in that. So like, yeah, that's where I agree. So like when we speak in the idea of a Western civilization, we're talking about all civilizations that embrace Western civilization.
Agree.
How are you agreeing? And then tell
argument is entire world.
It sounds like you're trying to change the like implied definitions of what we're talking about in order to seem more correct in your argument.
No, I literally Papa Gut started this off by saying that women out east and women out west are treated differently in different
but now what you're saying is you're combining South American countries in that as well, right?
Yeah.
Right. And like, I wasn't. We're talking about Western culture. That's not a Western culture.
I'm literally saying that when you ask me to make the comparative analysis and you say, George, would you rather be a woman out east, out west? I'm saying that in some instances it is better. In some instances,
but you're doing it on. Okay, so let's just simplify it. Would you rather be a woman in a Western civilization, which is like some European country, America, Scandinavian country, or a woman in a Middle Eastern country? Western.
I would like to use one of my lifelines and consult women and how politically, socially, economically they are positioned. I'm a black man living in the Western world. I can go off what my sisters that told me out west, but I would want to make a inferred, you know what I'm saying, decision based off of all the data I can collect. You know, they say good informed decisions come from collecting data. I would like to talk with women out east to understand and decide for me to make my comparative analysis of where I would be at. Because I recognize there are slippages and when one has it best or one has it worse compared to these other things, man. I'm about to get ready to get out here. I know my wife's gonna get on my ass. I've been here talking for 3 hours.
All right. All I would say is that I would rather be a woman in the West because
of course you would, bro.
They get treated better. I don't think I think that they overall they get treated better. I mean, like there's there's no instances of women being like fucking stoned for leaving the house without their husband. In America,
I think that you able to make sensationalized examples like women being stoned and being able to say that doesn't exist.
What do you mean?
And when we start talking about, how I think that when we start, I'm thinking about like this. When I start talking about violence, talking about, disparities, you bring these sensationalized examples like women being stoned, comparing where women can be stoned out east and they can't be stoned out west. It's obviously
can you well then just reply with a sensationalized idea of Western punishment for women.
I'm literally saying that in some instances.
No. I know, but what you're saying, I'm providing You're saying I'm providing a sensationalized idea of Eastern culture. So now give me a counter argument. Give me a Western sensationalized argument. Like, what do we legally do to women that's as bad as that we legally do to men over there, or to women over in those Eastern countries? It's legal to stone women in some of these countries. 0 Western countries is it legal to propagate that type of violence against women.
Shit, it's legal. It's legal in America for some women to never be able to tell their husband no. They got to get that pussy.
That's not. No, it's not. It's never legal. That is literally rape, and it is not accepted by anybody. It's not. It's not legal. It's not legal. It's simply not legal for you to rape your wife. Then you're making the argument, and you're being dishonest. No, it is true. It's not legal to rape your wife.
To the Afro-Christian part of the library, you should go to the feminist part of the library, and you think about how private spaces and public spaces has been used to cultivate rape against women.
But it's not. It's not legal. It's not legal.
It's seen as being legal. Like legally, there are states that say that legally a man cannot rape his wife. There are states that say that legally a husband cannot rape their wife.
And I would say under the Constitution, that's not true. There, like, just prove that to me, because like, show me an instance where a man was raping his wife and he got away with it. Like, I just, like, you're talking about me using outliers. I think you're using outliers, to be honest with you. Like, overall, like in these Muslim countries, like women are treated more harshly than women in these in American countries or in Western countries.
Here goes right here.
Uh-huh.
What states allow marital rape?
Uh-huh.
California, Connecticut, Maryland, Michigan, Mississippi, Nevada, Ohio, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
States where women can't be raped by husbands. Type it in. It's called marital rape.
That's fair.
Type it in.
You're protected from marital rape. So then that would be so that would be about on the same level as it being legal to stone your wife for like disagreeing with you or beating your wife in like Afghanistan. But
exactly. So
I would, sure.
Sensationalized instances to be able to say, well, one is better than the other. A woman can't even say no to her husband in certain states in America.
That's a little more broad. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I know what you just showed me. I'm saying like overall no. Because I would say that power dynamic is more. I would say that the power dynamic for women is bred more from the lack of like equity in women, like the lack of their ability to escape situations.
In 2000, I'm now looking at an article that was made by NPR.org. This woman fought to end Minnesota's marital exception.
Right, but we're talking about no. Are you speaking specifically no when it comes to sex? Yeah, you're talking about specifically no when it comes to sex. Yes, I know. You're talking about no in context of just sex or in general. I'm just making the argument that women have more power over here than they do in the Middle Eastern countries. We're both presenting outliers, and overall, I don't think it's that ignorant. Honestly, you can make the argument. No, I say that you're being polarizing because like because before we talked about the idea of like a difference between the two, and you said that because I thought it was worse in the East, that means I think that the West is perfect. That's why you were being polarizing. You weren't being contextually accurate.
No. I was saying that I think you're making an argument that justifies the West's best narrative, or an argument that justifies American leadership, or an argument that justifies American hegemony. That was my argument specifically.
Well, yeah, I think that Western civilization is a better civilization. Yeah.
Leads into West's best ideas that's able to justify American democracy being spread all throughout the world because it is bringing the greatness into the world. It's like that's literally how we justify American forces going and intervening and going in, you know what I'm saying, goddamn taking over shit. Because hey, man, we gotta stop the.
Well, yeah, now we're
racism.
talking about
Hey,
colonization,
we're
sure.
trying to bring some of these great American values to y'all.
But
Y'all
I
suck right now, you don't have American
but
values.
I can think that Western civilization is best without thinking that we should colonize the rest of the world. Like I can maintain that argument.
Agreed.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't negate how your belief can be used to justify said interventions and said, you know what I'm saying?
Right, but if we're gonna get into a conversation about how people can weaponize beliefs, then all of a sudden all religions are bad because people weaponize religions to hate women and LGBT.
I agree. All religions are bad.
You think so? Oh well, that's at least you're. I mean, like, okay, I disagree, but at least you're staying consistent.
Belief are bad. Institutionalized systems of belief are bad.
You think so? I don't think that's.
It's structured by a Western understanding of being able to institutionalize systems of belief. I think that when we think about how Native Americans operated before European engagement, or how enslaved Africans operated outside of European engagement, they didn't have this understanding of religion. Their spirituality was fluid and it was being. It didn't have.
Okay. So you wouldn't call like that spiritual belief a religion, because there are effectively forms of religion.
System of belief that creates a hierarchy for you to get a right to passage in your belief. That is a very Western understanding.
What do you mean by that?
If you think about all the sweat lodges, or think about, you know what I'm saying, shout out to my Chutta people, shout out to my Seminole people, they did things like sweat lodges. The idea of religion and how it's structured in America with the Europeans did not exist prior to a European engagement, when people, you know what I'm saying, of different native tribes were doing their different ceremonies. Feel me? Their ceremonies cannot be understood through a Western understanding of religion. They're institutionalized.
So you're saying they're drastically different from each other.
Drastically different.
So you would maintain the idea that like spiritualism, regardless of what your belief is like better than religion, because religion is too like it's too. I want to say this the right way. It's too. Yeah, okay. Because religion is too. What do we call like institutionalized? What we call it? All right, that's fair. That's a fair argument. That's fair.
System of belief, and beliefs are made immaterial.
Roping that. Material. Sure. Roping that around. Let's say I agree with you. So Christianity is a religion, right? It's not a spirituality, right? The religion of Islam is a religion. It's not a spirituality. So being very commonsensical about the two, America fights to a rather large degree against Christianity being like the dominating rule of thought, whereas like Middle Eastern countries don't do that when it comes to their religions. From a commonsensical perspective, I would agree with that. I think we hold far less to our religious values in America than people in like in Muslim or Islamic countries hold to their values.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is,
I'm just saying,
where I live at. And where I'm from, I live in Oklahoma. I'm from Texas. All the conservatives around me spent their whole entire Obama presidency talking about how Obama was not a Christian, and him not being a Christian was supposed to devalue his ability to be able to be the president. I think that we think about how other religions are demonized in America. It shows you that Christianity, as a matter of fact, you have a WASP, white Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah, I know what a WASP
Protestant. That's structured by Christianity. Literally, the idea that we the savage, kill the savage, and save the man. That's a Christian understanding.
And
destiny is a Christian understanding.
And I simply hold the argument that you can contextualize different cultures without being hateful towards those cultures.
Well, I can pull on. If I had a dollar bill right now, I'll show you my dollar bill. Whether it's a $5 bill, $1 bill, $20 bill, it's structured by Christianity.
Okay, well, right, but what my point is that you can speak out against another country without maintaining some form of phobia against that country. I can make the assertion, even if you don't agree. All I'm saying is I can make the assertion that America has a more just society than that Western civilization has a more just society than Eastern civilizations, without being like, hey, we need to get rid of Islamic people. Because I maintain the idea that
you can make that argument. I would disagree, and that the Western world is situated upon native death. Literally the entire
world. Sure, yeah, 100%. But that's where we were, and but that's where we were, and we're actively changing that. That's where we were, and we're actively changing that.
That's what we still is, bro. That's what we still at.
We're changing away from that.
No, how are we giving land back to Native Americans?
I have no idea. I think we just did give land back to Native Americans. Yeah. I don't remember where. There was like an instance I was actually surprised because I wouldn't think America would do that.
I think you're talking about, but you're gonna see how in this instance the American government is able to use the law and permute it in every way they want to do. In Eastern Oklahoma, they decided that the Eastern Oklahoma territory was still supposed to be to a specific tribe.
Mm.
They give the land back.
There is right, but there are tribes like have their own land that's like tax-free land that get government incentives. Yeah, we have that. This is out here. We have like a situation like that. It's where you get cigarettes for very cheap.
What I'm acknowledging is that most of those native tribes have been displaced.
Sure.
And moved to a part of America that they wasn't originally in. Shout out to all the all the tribes.
But like I would say, like we talked before. We talked before, and we came to the acknowledgement that like in the past, colonization and slavery were both things that like all civilizations did. America just took it a step further. So like
America was just more evil.
Sure, that's fine. Or rather, not even America. No, let's not say America. Let's say Western civilization, because like I think Britain was like the most evil with it. If we're gonna really get down to it.
I don't know.
Because I think the United States.
The Portuguese were the best at doing it, but I think that the Americans was more evil.
Maybe. I mean, well, you say more evil back then in that frame of thought. Maybe they just thought maybe
in slavery without fighting a war.
Right,
the British were able to end slavery without fighting a war. America is one of the only countries that had to fight a war to agree that slavery.
But let's just end off on the fact that America did fight that war. White people fought the war with black people to maintain, like, to try to push towards more equality. This is a factor to consider.
I think that if I commit murder, bro, or I shoot your ass and I try to do, you know what I'm saying, surgery on you to help me from shooting you, it doesn't.
But now you're generalizing all white people as like evil, like perpetuators of black violence.
Not at all.
That's what you just did. I just said like, hey, there's white people who fought against black people. Yeah, but like we just acknowledged that like the North was trying to actively shift.
Hey, on an individual level, I wouldn't get no credit for saving your bullet shot wound. I'm the one that created it. If I create a bullet shot wound,
right? But that's what I'm saying. You're saying that the North created the bullet when those people actively fought against it.
America created the bullet. The East and the North and the South.
Yeah, and then the North was the ones actively fighting against it because they knew it was wrong.
They wasn't actively. Yeah.
Well, then why do we fight a war?
Whatever to keep the Union intact. I believe that was the exact words of Abraham Lincoln. His exact words: if I have to free 4 slaves and keep all the rest of them on the plantation, if I have to keep all the slaves on the plantation, whatever to keep the Union intact.
That's true.
So when you ask me the dumb question about what the slavery fought,
what I'm trying to get to a point is that there's a lot of individuals who don't want this system to be in place that subjugates black people, and I think that
that's the reason I focus on institutions and
right.
Systems. Individuals don't matter. The institutions and how they go.
But institutions. I mean, people are going to change those institutions. That's pretty much what we're getting to.
Maybe.
What? Maybe. At the end of the day, as different as our opinions are, you don't think, and I don't want some white savior bullshit, but you don't think that my ideas, generally speaking, have like a positive impact on like equality. Okay. Well, I guess that's fair.
Maybe. I think that when you make the argument that we have to worry about trying to solve a problem for white people that don't exist right now, I think
that's where we
have to spend time, energy,
no, we don't. No, we don't. You're making it seem like I'm advocating for this huge idea when simply all I just want is the word racism to be maintained the way it is. That's all I want. That doesn't take time and hard work. It takes nothing.
It takes time.
No, it doesn't.
It takes time for a white person to be murdered for being white, and for the United States federal government to acknowledge as a hate crime.
No, it does. No, we don't. No. But that's not what I'm advocating for. You're assigning values to my words that simply don't exist, and you've done it the whole time.
I'm not assigning value
because I never said we need to. We need a whole fucking coalition to try to make sure that when black people hurt white people, that's racist. I never said that. I simply said we should maintain the current definition of racism that doesn't exclude white people, so that in the future we create a society of pure equality.
I think that now you are taking away meaning and value for words that we already assigned.
No. You said that there would be. You said no. You said what? You said that it's going to take a ton of time and energy for us to maintain what the word racism means right now. That's what you just said before. You said, I focus too much time and energy on maintaining the idea that white people can be targets of racism. That's what you said. And then my argument was like, it takes no time at all to maintain the word and then fight real issues like systemic racism.
3 hours to talk about this shit.
Yeah, don't. No. Now you're being dishonest. You're saying no.
time.
Now you're telling me
we invest a lot of labor into this conversation.
Yeah, we did. As individuals, we absolutely did. And I can make the argument that I can make the argument that we spent. First of all, it was maybe 2 hours, maybe not even. Second of all, but like
5 minutes is too much emotional labor to spend on thinking about if white people.
Now you're creating a system where I simply can't win the argument based on your parameters. You're being dishonest.
Obviously, that's how you debate, bro.
Yeah, that's debate. No, but see, that's the thing. This isn't a debate. So you're admitting you're going out of your way to win the debate over actually having an honest conversation.
When you have a conversation and you have differing,
every time I catch you on something, you shift so drastically. The reality of the situation.
Things in this debate
even if the two of us spent 6 months talking about whether you can or can't be racist towards white people, that's overall almost no time dedicated to anything because we're two people in a society of 330 million. The reality is that the concept of, hey, listen, you can be racist towards white people, but systemically you can't, or individually you can, systemically you can't. That's not a radical idea, and it takes no energy or effort, and it takes no energy or effort to maintain what we already have. What?
I got on this call with Papa Good at 12 o'clock Central Time.
So you're in Central Time.
A lot of emotional labor, a lot of mental labor, a lot of intellectual labor talking about whether white people can experience racism.
Yeah.
It's a time trade-off. Us talking about how white people could hypothetically do X, Y, and Z literally takes away from us talking about real material strategies and dealing with white supremacy and anti-blackness. Instead, we wasted our time and talked about hypotheticals of white people hypothetically being able to experience racism, even though we acknowledge they don't experience racism now.
So
it's a waste of time to think about how it's a waste of time.
Right? All I have to do is say the exact thing you said, except use your argument, and all of a sudden it seems like your argument's a waste of time. So like when I could be like, yeah, we just wasted all this time. If you want me to say the exact thing that you said, I could say like, oh, we just sat here and talked about whether you can't be racist towards white people. We spent all this emotional time and energy in trying to talk about something when we could be focusing on real issues. I could say the same thing back to you. You chose to have this specific. I said,
I did not choose that conversation. I didn't. You sent me a TikTok. You asked me. We can do two things. We talk about systemic racism.
I said
talk about whether white people can experience racism. That was you as you set the conversation.
Yeah, sure. And then you accepted. Yeah. I brought those two up as we could have focused on this, but you could have said, "Nah, let's talk about systemic racism." It has more emotional impact. You chose to. You said you chose to have this. But you chose to have this conversation with me just as much as I chose to have it with you. And you're trying to put it off onto me as if it discredits me that we talked about it. You engaged it. We both have the same. We both invested the same time and energy into this conversation. So you can't dismiss my entire argument. You can't dismiss the entire argument because it was a waste of time. You engaged in it. Yes, you were. You just did. That was your whole argument. You just your new argument was your new argument was like, oh, it takes so much time to have conversations about whether you can and can't be racist to white people, and that's why my argument is bad. And then I was like, well, I could say the same to you. And they're like, well, no, but you chose it, and we both chose it. You're trying to deny your individual responsibility in actually having this conversation with me. It's a weird point that you made that I would never have made.
I'm literally opted into a voluntary conversation of the parameters being set about white people experiencing racism or solutions to racism. Yeah. Nobody put a gun to Papa Good head and say, Papa Good, make this video to the Conscious League, and you have to only ask.
Did anybody put a gun to your head? Did anybody put a gun to your head? Did anybody put a gun to your head? Did anybody put a gun to your head?
I'm acknowledging that I opted in voluntarily.
Yeah, but you're using the gun argument only on me. We both decided to opt into this conversation. So dismissing my perspective solely on the time it took and the emotions that you and I invested is disingenuous.
Papa Good. You having the white privilege of thinking about
it's all disparaging remarks, man. It's just you're coming at this in a way to simply disparage me in my argument rather than to disparage the argument.
I'm coming at you straightforward, bro. No disparaging.
But why do I have white privilege to engage in this conversation with you? Explain that to me.
Because you can engage in the privilege of recognizing that you don't experience it now, which is a mere privilege, and you get to weaponize that privilege and say, "But what if I did experience it?"
Nope,
that's a fucking privilege, bro.
No, I'm not doing that at all.
How not? So right now, do you have the experience of going through hate crimes?
No, I don't.
No, that's a privilege.
That's great, that's irrelevant to the argument. We're discussing No, you're wrapping it around again. If you want to keep talking about it, we can. We are simply talking about the best way to move forward as a society. We're simply talking. I can't even hear what you're saying. What?
When is our part 2?
I don't know, whatever you want to do it. No, but I'm going to answer the question now because you brought it up. You're constantly talking about white privilege and all these other things. Not everything can be an instance of white privilege. What I simply said is to simply move forward to be better, to treat people equally. And you're denying that idea.
Because white privilege exists on an individual level.
Okay, sure. But that doesn't mean that like we can't create a society that rejects the idea of race. And that's what I'm trying to fight for. And in order to do that, we have to treat each other equally while contextualizing systemic racism.
You want to take a society that's structured and built on race and say that we need to create new standards because we hope to get to a point where society is no longer structured by race. Circular, hypothetical. You're
doing it again. You're disparaging my argument. You're using an emotional argument. You have no leverage. Listen. Do you think should we get to a place where we're all equal? Is that the idea? Is that where we should get?
Yes, the question is how do we get
exactly, there? And we don't get there by treating people differently on an individual level. We get there by treating people the same while contextualizing reality like systemic racism. That's how we get there. I've presented that point multiple times. The fact that
how do we treat white people now in 2020 as if they could go through hate crimes?
That's what you're doing. You're not being fully accurate. You're just simply ignoring the next 500 years. No, you're not. You're living in the now. You're using your privilege as a person to live in the now rather than talk about how we can propagate a better society in the future. Your optics are non-existent. Your optics are non-existent. Your optics do not exist. You're sitting in a place of a pure bias, and you're not trying to even acknowledge my argument. You're playing this game where I'm playing white victim when simply put, you're playing this game where I'm playing white victim when simply put, systemic racism exists. No, I'm not. That's what you're trying to diminish my argument. You're trying to diminish my argument. You're simply put, you're using an emotional reaction to diminish my argument because you don't want to listen. You're doing it again. You're refusing to acknowledge it. You're living in the now, and you're having a very disingenuous argument. You're coming from a place where it doesn't matter.
If white people experience racism, would they make them a victim of racism?
You're not understanding the pure, just what this argument is about. We're having a conversation about how to propagate equality, and treating people differently on an individual level doesn't propagate equality. That's the reality of the situation. You're trying to set up social standards that are unequal, and I don't understand how you could sit there and you could justify it and completely ignore what I'm saying. Every single time I say we need to make sure that we set a standard so that everybody's equal in the future, you say, what about now? I'm focused on the future, and it's your privilege as an individual without optics that makes you ignore future generations, and that's what we're having a conversation about.
In the future, if white people are experience racism, they will be victims of racism, correct?
Yeah, they would be.
Right now. Semantics, come on.
Yes, they would. They would be. They would be a victim of racism if they did.
Conversation about systemic racism.
No, I'm not. No, I never said white people could be the victim of systemic racism in today's society.
That's my argument.
No, it's not. We're talking about individualized instances of racism. We're not talking about systemic racism. And you're trying to say every single time you lose on a fucking point, you bring it back to systemic racism. And that's why you're having a very dishonest argument with a conversation with me.
Hypothetically, in the future, you're saying that if white people were to experience racism, they would not be considered victims of racism?
Yes, because you're trying to set that standard right now.
So when you say that I'm being bad faith and all this shit, how are you not trying to have this conversation where you're prioritizing whether white?
I'm not prioritizing it. I'm literally not prioritizing.
When you ask me the question, why did you specify the individual level when you asked me if white people can experience racism on an individual level? Why did you specify individual?
Because white people can't experience systemic racism. No. Listen. No. I'm gonna be honest with you. Every single time you're pivoting so hard. You're pivoting. No, it's related, but it's not. You're pivoting. You're. I can
pivot on you and dunk on you. I can pivot on you and backstep and shoot the three.
So listen. What it comes down to. Yeah, no. Listen. Here's where we'll end off. Here's the reality of the situation. I've been making a very logical argument, and every single time you can't contest me, you bring it back to whatever you feel like you can win on. We're talking about the potential of individualized racism, and you still haven't given me a single reason.
Cannot experience.
Yes, I know they can't experience it, and you keep pivoting back to that. You keep
Never
pivoting back to this every single time I catch you. You go, but systemic racism. But we've already acknowledged that. So we move forward a little bit, and you bring it back every single time you get hit down on it. Because you can't construct a logical argument against what I'm saying, because you've never heard somebody make the argument I've made. You've never had a conversation like you had a conversation with me. Yeah,
you should not give yourself as much credit. There are literal literature bases that's literally created and produced with your whack ass idea.
What's my wait? What's my idea? What's my idea? What's my idea? Explain to me what my idea is. Explain to me what my perspective is.
Your idea is worried and saying that, hey guys, I know that white people don't experience racism right now, but what if the power dynamic shifted to the point where white people did experience racism?
Sure.
That's your whole entire argument. Their entire literature basis about.
And your argument is that can never exist.
Whole argument.
And your argument is that so your argument is that it can never exist.
The slave master wrote about that. The slave master said, like, man.
Yeah, now you're equating me to a slave master. This is what I'm talking about. You're proposing very disingenuous arguments. I'm not a slave master. I'm simply saying that systemic racism exists, and I want to. Yes, you just made the parallel. You're making the parallel. You're calling me. You're trying to say that I'm a slave master. You're trying to make the emotional. Yes, you are.
Your argument was used by the slave master. Your argument was used to justify.
Did the slave masters acknowledge systemic racism?
You said what?
Did the slave masters acknowledge systemic racism?
I don't know.
No, they didn't. So then you're completely miscontextualizing this conversation. You're trying to label me a slave master. When all I'm saying is systemic racism.
System, bro. There were slaves that acknowledged the system of plantation being literally held to account by
slave master. They're slave masters.
The slave law made it word.
So you're now because you're getting off. Now you're saying that slave masters acknowledged that there was systemic racism and we needed to fight against it. Are you saying that there are slave masters that were like, yeah, systemic racism exists and we need to fight against it? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that systemic racism exists and we need to make sure we hold
right.
On
so you're pivoting again. You pivoted off the argument again.
There were literal
Confederate
soldiers that held on to systemic racism because they thought it was good, something that should be held on to.
Am I doing that? Am I doing that? Am I doing that? Am I doing that?
You from, bro?
Am I doing that?
I never said it was slave master.
Okay, so then drop the argument. Yes, you're trying to make the equation. The fact that I caught you on it doesn't mean that you weren't doing it.
The same argument that you're using was also used by the slave master.
Yep, and then when we went into it, your argument crumbled once I asked you if the slave masters believe they should remove systemic racism because they didn't. Right? Yes, it did. You don't want it to crumble. Listen. You come from a history of debate. So like you're going to continue to argue with me to win rather than to actually have a conversation. That's where we are right now. What I said one last time. You can disagree, but it's just that's the commonsensical aspect.
Conversations have disagreements.
Yeah, right. But you're coming from a place of debate rather than conversation.
I'm not going to agree with you in saying that white people can hypothetically experience racism in the future. I don't agree with that.
But they could.
I don't agree with that.
Well, I just think they could. Again, if once we do what I want to do, which is to once we shift the power dynamic, once we get the power dynamic towards equality. What?
I gotta change the pamphlet now. I say all our beef comes from this hypothetical. You think that hypothetically white people can experience racism. I think hypothetically white people can never experience racism based off of how the word is structured and defined.
Right, and then you go on to this whole structure and definement. And again, what I come from is that we are actively shifting the power dynamics so that if we create a social law that says that you can't be racist towards white people, once everything hits that point of equality, we socially still have standards that differentiate black and white people, except that white people are the victims. That's what I'm saying. It's a very clear-cut, dry, and a very commonsensical projection and story to tell.
You acknowledge that so when does the definition of racism change, or white people get to be victims of it? When does it change?
You tell me. Isn't that what you're trying to do?
Right now, when does it change?
But you're trying to actively change it. You're trying to actively change it, though.
Yes, and I'm not.
So then it's
actively change it to make it where black people at the top and white people at the bottom. That's what your argument describes.
Right,
because I'm not trying to separate white people engaging with racism. I must be trying to create black supremacy. I'm not.
Right. No, I'm not saying that you're a black supremacist. What I'm saying, no. I don't think that. See, you're being very short-sighted. I don't think that you're a black supremacist or anything at all. What I'm saying is that the wordage matters. There's a difference between social and legal law. What?
What I'm saying right now is there are thousands of people that's going to be able to interpret our engagement.
Mhm.
What I'm acknowledging is that I'm not saying that you're saying this. I'm saying that people will be able to take the words and what you're saying.
No, they're not.
Justify saying
no, they're
consciously not. Is a white supremacist because he doesn't think that white people can experience racism.
Well, that's on you. Okay. But that's on you. But that's right. But that's on you. If people think you're a racist because of that, that's on you. I don't think you're a racist. I just think that you don't have the right. But like you're trying to now say that you're trying to say that now, based on what I'm saying, that white supremacists will be rallied by what I'm saying. You're again trying to equate me to a white supremacist. This is like what, the 5th time that you've done that? You have to stop doing that. I'm not a white supremacist. No white supremacist is gonna go, oh, this no white supremacist. What?
I'm gonna say this straightforward. You have some white supremacist.
No, I don't.
And you have some.
No, I don't. No, I don't. No, I don't. I'm not. A debate for what?
That's a debate.
We've had.
That's a debate. I'm gonna beat your ass and showing you that you are implicated in white supremacist thought. I'm gonna kick you. I'm gonna wipe the floor with you. Set up the debate.
Do white? So no. We're not. Listen. We're not setting up a debate. This entire conversation, we've already had the debate just now.
You are having white supremacist thoughts. I already got one link in how you perpetuate the ignorant American understanding of 9 Western countries. That's my one link right there. I got one link already. I will literally mop the floor with you and showing you, Papa Good, how you are implicated in white supremacist thoughts.
It seems like
you ain't gotta have no white hoods. You ain't gotta burn no crosses in people's start. This does not mean that you are not aligned with white supremacy. I will whoop your ass, Papa Good, in the debate and showing you that you are aligned with white supremacy. Take me up on the debate.
What it sounds like is that you're so frustrated that now you're trying to say that I'm a white supremacist, and I just proved that you think I'm a white supremacist. And there's no way for us to move forward and have like an actual honest conversation where you think I'm a white supremacist, because what you're saying is that white supremacists believe that systemic racism exists and that they believe that we need to actively shift the power dynamic.
There's a multiplicity in how white supremacists think.
And they think that we also need to shift away from white supremacy. And you're saying that I'm a white supremacist, even though I want to shift the power dynamic.
Hey, it's white liberals and white conservatives.
And there we go again, man. It's in
the big picture, but they don't understand how they're.
And there it goes again. It's just always white supremacy. White supremacy. We can't have an honest conversation because you're too biased and invested in it, and you come from a place of debate rather than conversation. And I don't think that there was a single point in this conversation where you ever had any intention of actually listening. You were just ready to try to win, and that's why this is a conversation for me, and it was a debate for you. Because I came in here listening to what you said. You haven't even acknowledged my argument at any point.
I think that I was trying to have a conversation with you, and when I didn't cede to your paternalistic characterizations of simplifying shit and being like, "Well, this or this," you got mad when I came with the passion with your ass.
No, so we both came with a passion. No, we both came with a passion.
I'm trying to you in to get the smoke, bro.
Right. But now, see, I never labeled you a black supremacist in my passions.
Literally, I'm saying this, literally, I fuck with you, but you are educated in white supremacy.
But see, the thing is that you're trying to equate our emotional reactions. I never said you were a black supremacist at any point, but you said I was a white supremacist.
I don't care nothing about your emotions in this.
So then why are you asking me to care about yours? This is what I'm talking about. Every single time we move to a new point, you just pivot. All of a sudden, you bring it to the emotions of it. I give you a logical argument for our emotional interpretations, and then you're like, well, I don't care about your emotions. Honestly, you're not having an honest conversation. You're constantly pivoting, and you're not even trying to have an honest conversation with me.
No, now you're trying to inscribe how I'm coming to this conversation.
Yeah, because I'm doing it right. Yeah, no, because I know what I'm talking about. Like, I know that what we're going through. Like, listen, man.
Of course, the white man doing it right.
And there it is again. It has to be because I'm white. It has to be because I'm white.
It has to be. It has
to be because I'm white.
Obviously, it has to be.
Yeah, no, it has to be because I'm white.
About me being white, how's implicated? That's my privilege of being white. The privilege of being white is never having to think about your race and how it's
right. So that's what I'm saying. Every single time that I get you on a point, you go right back to that I'm a white supremacist now. That's your new argument.
I've never called you a white supremacist.
You just did. You said you're going to have an argument on why I'm a white supremacist. You're just immediately muted right now.
Supremacy and not supremacist with you. I've correlated you to white supremacy, not
white supremacy. So to an extent, you think I'm a white supremacist.
White supremacy is an ideology.
Yeah, and I don't maintain that ideology. I don't subscribe to it.
You have an ignorant blind spot in how you've been conditioned.
Again, your whole argument is white privilege, and it's just not going to work. You're trying to shame me into believing what you believe at this point, and it's just not going to work on me, man. Come on. What? I can't hear you saying.
Does white privilege exist?
Yeah, it does. Sure.
You experience white privilege?
Probably. Sure. Because I've acknowledged that white privilege exists, now this has to mean that this is a level of white privilege, and that's where you're wrong, because you still haven't proved that there's white privilege here.
So
you don't, because at the end of the day, now your argument is that anything that I say that disagrees with you is white privilege, and that comes from your privilege just as yes, it is. That's your whole fucking argument. You're deciding you're correct. You're deciding that you're right because I'm white. You're saying that I have to be wrong because you're black, and then I'm white.
You're simplifying them and saying that, oh, now everything I say is white supremacy.
You're overcomplicating the argument because you know if it gets simple, then you lose. Because that's what you do. You try to overcomplicate every single argument to try to play mental gymnastics to try to search for a win because you're a debater. You're a career debater. That's not who I am. I simplify things because when you get to the simplicity of things is when you could really get down to what they mean. And at the end of the day, when you simplify your beliefs, they really come down to nothing more than I have to be right because you're white. That's what it is.
Racism was simple. Already. If racism was simple, my black ass and your white ass would not be here talking about this. We'll be having cups and coffees and talking about.
We can still do that. We can still have cups of coffees, though.
Racism is so complex, and you want to simplify to simple shit.
No, I don't.
Mad, bro.
No, I don't. That's the problem. But here's where we get to the. But this is what happens. You always make this argument, then I say no, because I acknowledge systemic racism. I'm simply talking about propagating a society of equality between all people. And then you go, oh, you think white people can be the target of systemic racism, and you do this circle where you always bring it back to systemic racism. You're ignoring the parts that I'm acknowledging, and you're hyper focusing on what we already agree with. You're trying to cannibalize my perspective.
It's mediocre, bro. Your psychoanalysis of what happened in this conversation is lackluster.
Nah, I think that yours is lackluster.
So like this last thing I asked, now I gotta go.
Yeah.
Do you think that racism is simple?
Do I think that racism is simple? No. Why would I think that racism is simple? That doesn't prove anything. That's actually that. So that literally right there is the epitome of the conversation, where we have a conversation and then a massive pivot to make sure that you try to win because you're more focused on winning than having an honest conversation.
I'll let you, man. Education is elevation.
I understand you have to go. I appreciate the conversation, and we should set something up to how to solve systemic racism, because I think we'll have fewer disagreements on that, and it will be a nice conversation. And just for
conversation.
What?
In order for us to solve a problem, we have to understand how to.
Yeah, that's fine. Listen, we're not going to agree on this particular thing. What I want to say, ending off. Hold on. Before you go, all I want to say before you leave is, I think we'll have a nice conversation about how to end systemic racism, and that I'm not personalizing anything we just talked about. Even if I got emotionally heated, I'm not going to take it and dislike you as an individual. Now, I don't know if that's reciprocated. I don't even know if he closed the thing, but that's what I'm saying. Oh, he might have disconnected. Okay, I think he's gone. Either that or my connection cut out. Wow, that was a good conversation. He might have disconnected himself from that. Okay. So that was a rather heated conversation. That was something. Say thank you so much, guys, to all my Patreons, and a special shout out to my Papa XL Patreons. Without all you guys, I would just be some fat dude screaming into a microphone. So thank you so much, guys. Mwah, I love you all. I want Papa Gut to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.